Chapter 1565. Yi Tianyun quickly shuttled back and forth in the maze, trying to find the exit. According to the situation, he would only need to spend some time to find the exit. After all, as long as he didn't fumble around, he would be able to find the exit. Even if the area was huge, he could find the exit as long as he spent some time. Moreover, he had no other choice but to use these ordinary methods. If his spiritual sense was useful, his speed would definitely increase by a lot, and he would be able to get out easily. Now, he could only look around for the exit. It was a stupid method, but he could only use this method. This level is really sick. Even if it's a dark trial, it shouldn't be so cruel, right? Yi Tianyun was very helpless. He shuttled back and forth in the maze, and at the same time, he kept remembering the situation around him, forming a special space in his mind. Although it was the same, he would leave a small mark on the side, so that he wouldn't walk this path again. As time passed, he quickly shuttled back and forth in the maze. He didn't know how long he had been running, but he felt that he had already run a long distance. If converted to a planet, he didn't know how many laps he had run. With his current cultivation, he could travel thousands of miles in an instant, which was absolutely shocking. But here, it was like an endless road, with no end in sight. He made a lot of marks, and he didn't encounter any later, which meant that he didn't go the wrong way. Under the condition of not going the wrong way, he still couldn't reach the end. It had to be said that this area was really too vast. However, it was indeed very vexing. First, he ran to the fork in front of him. Then, there were many more forks. After randomly choosing one to enter, there were dozens more forks. He was on the verge of collapsing. He didn't even know how many forks there were. Could it be that even with perception, I can't escape from here? Yi Tianyun frowned. Logically, he should be able to pass this way, but he couldn't leave at all, and was trapped in this area. As for regretting it, it was already too late. He couldn't use the teleportation divine stone, and he couldn't use teleportation to leave either. He was completely trapped here. It seems that the real difficulty isn't facing powerful enemies, but these endless traps. Yi Tianyun finally stopped, walked in front of one of the walls, and then waved his fist and smashed it. Boom! A hole was smashed into the wall. Since that's the case, I'll break through the walls one by one and see if I can make a path. Yi Tianyun was furious. He had no choice but to use the most violent method. He would smash the walls one by one, which would serve as a marker. Moreover, he would definitely walk in a straight line. If he walked in a straight line, he would definitely be able to get out, right? Then, he smashed his way down. He had to admit that the walls here were really hard. However, under his violent fists, he still managed to kill one with each punch. His energy was somewhat consumed, but now that things had come to this, he couldn't care less. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to get out of here if he fought his way through. After smashing countless walls, Yi Tianyun's hands turned red. In the end, he used the 5-dragon divine spear to stab at the wall. With the help of the 5-dragon divine spear, it was as if the gods were helping them. They easily broke through one wall after another as if they were cutting through tofu. But even after he broke through many walls, he still couldn't see the end. After breaking through one wall, there would be another. There was no end to it. I still haven't reached the end. Yi Tianyun stopped. He felt that something was amiss. Even if it was a giant planet, with his previous speed, he would be able to punch through it. Now, there was still no end, which surprised him. When he turned his head to look behind him, there was still a big hole behind him. However, when he stretched his head to sense the area further away, he found that the wall slightly further behind him had completely recovered. It actually recovered. Yi Tianyun frowned. From this, he could see many things. It was even possible that he had fallen into a strange array. Then, he probed deeper but didn't find any clues. Not to mention a divine seal, there wasn't even a trace. But if there was, he would have discovered it a long time ago, and not now. Strange. Yi Tianyun's eyes darkened. It seemed that he had really fallen into a strange trap. Moreover, it wasn't the kind that was easy to escape from. As expected, the dark trial wasn't that easy to break through. It was much more difficult than the light trial. The light trial relied on brute force to pass it. Here, whether it was brute force or techniques, he had used them all. Who knew that there would be no effect at all? He had to admit that it was too strange. For the first time, he felt that he couldn't exert his strength. He didn't continue to destroy the wall. If it was effective, it would have succeeded a long time ago. He wouldn't be trapped here. Do I have to use another method? At this time, he deeply understood that there were such strange methods in the world. This kind of array was probably of a higher level. It wouldn't be easy to break it. After pacing back and forth for a while, he stared at the top of his head. He thought about it carefully. He hadn't checked the top of his head yet. When he looked up at the sky, he naturally sensed the ceiling. There was no bright spot. As he probed along the way, he found that it was very ordinary. It was no different from underground. But as he carefully probed, he gradually began to reveal a clue, the trace of a divine seal. This divine seal was hidden very deeply. It was just inside the wall. It just happened that there was a trace of it on the wall that he had destroyed. If it wasn't for his strong perception, he really wouldn't have sensed it. Now that he sensed it, his eyes immediately lit up. It's actually hidden on the ceiling. How is this designed? Yi Tianyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Usually, arrays were set up underground. It was mainly because there were all kinds of energy crystals buried underground or to attract underground spiritual qi. That way, the array could be maintained. Therefore, normally, people would look directly at the ground to find a way to break the array. But now, it was directly above his head. This wasn't just strange, it was strange to the extreme. If he hadn't looked carefully, he really wouldn't have thought that it would be on the ceiling even if he racked his brains. Normally, if it was set up, it definitely wouldn't be able to last for too long. It would run out of energy very quickly. Without energy, no matter how strong the array was, it wouldn't be able to operate. This was just like cultivators. Without energy, no matter how strong their cultivation was, they wouldn't be able to use it. They would just lie on the ground and be at the mercy of others. As long as I find it, everything will be much easier. Chapter 1566. After Yi Tianyun found the divine seal, he quickly began to break it. The difficulty was quite high, but for him, it wasn't a problem. As long as he could break it, he would rather slow down. It was better than going around in circles. At that time, there would be no way out. After a period of time, the divine seal was finally broken. After breaking it, the surrounding dark area suddenly disappeared without a trace, turning into a very ordinary maze. This maze wasn't that big. There were only 3 forks and 3 straight lines. There weren't any more than that. This meant that he had been crazily running before, going back and forth in circles in these areas. As for making a mark, it was even more meaningless, as it would disappear on its own. Even the walls could be restored, let alone a mere mark. After recovering, he fell into a dead end and could only go around in circles. The overall area was only the size of a small courtyard. If he ran a little, he would run out of space. But he had been going around in circles for a long time. It was as if he had run the size of several planets. It was really a waste of time. It seems that this trial not only requires proficiency in perception, but also a high-level divine carving master. Yi Tianyun shook his head helplessly. There is no sign outside the trial. If he just casually broke in, wouldn't he be dead for sure? This trial required a divine carving master to pass. Ordinary cultivators would find it extremely difficult to break through. Unless one's cultivation was very high, it was impossible to forcefully break through the great array here. At least within the Empyrean realm, it was impossible to achieve this step. One must be at least a heavenly god level or higher to achieve this step. Moreover, one must be a very strong heavenly god. After breaking through, he saw the exit and entrance in front of him. There was basically no detour. It had to be said that after breaking through, the scene he saw was completely different. Before, he thought that it was a huge maze, but after breaking through it, he found himself going around in circles. Yi Tianyun didn't have any temper after being fooled. Who would have thought that the great array would be engraved on the ceiling? After Yi Tianyun lifted his foot and walked out, he turned his head and looked over. He saw a thick ceiling above him, causing him to be startled. The dark training area is probably underground. Now, he knew why the formation was carved on the surface. It was because the surface belonged to the underground, and there was a spirit vein or something that continuously provided energy, thus achieving the effect of maintaining the formation. In that case, it would be feasible to carve the formation on it. Yi Tianyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he found out why he could do this. It seemed that everything had been planned from the very beginning. He turned his gaze to the front again. It was still pitch black in front of him, but there was a belt of light in the middle, which meant that as long as he crossed it, he would truly enter that pitch-black space. Seems like the owner of this place is really addicted. Yi Tianyun was speechless when he saw the environment in front of him. Even if it was a secret trial, there was no need to be so crazy, right? Was he really black all the way until the very end? If that was the case, it wouldn't be easy to pass. It was already so difficult when they had just entered. Who knew how difficult it would be later on? He paused for a moment, but in the end, he still stepped forward and walked into the pitch-black space. Previously, he had consumed some energy, but since he wasn't injured, he could recover with a little replenishment. It wasn't a big deal. Then, when he stepped into the pitch-black space, all his vision, including his spiritual sense, was blocked again. It felt exactly the same as before. There was no change at all. This method was still the same as before. Did this mean that he had to continue looking for the god's seal to break? He immediately released his perception and explored his surroundings. In a short while, he sensed the situation nearby. He saw that there was a formation under his feet. There was no doubt that it was the god's seal formation. I found it so quickly. Yi Tianyun was stunned. It was so easy this time. This was really too strange. Or rather, it should be said that everything was too easy. He could find it so quickly. This was really too surprising. Previously, it took him half a day to find it. Now, it was so easy. How could he not feel strange? Just as he was thinking about how to break it, a murderous intent suddenly came from behind him. He subconsciously dodged to the side. The moment he dodged, a deep mark appeared in the area where he was. However, it healed very quickly. Yi Tianyun couldn't see anyone. He only saw a deep mark in the area where he was just standing. If he hadn't dodged just now, he would have been torn in half. If he was any better, he would have been seriously injured. However, under his perception, he couldn't find anyone. The range of his perception was too small. At most, he could only sense within a range of 10 meters. He couldn't sense anything further. This meant that the enemy could see him, but he couldn't see them. He could only be in a passive state of defense. In a state of constant defense, he had to continuously break the formation. Just thinking about it made him feel a little scared. It's really not easy. This time, there are many enemies. If the formation is still hidden, how can I play? Yi Tianyun knew what the purpose of this trial was. It was either to kill the enemy or to break the formation under the fierce attack of the enemy. No matter which one it was not easy. If he wanted to kill the enemy, he had to at least know where the enemy was. As for breaking the formation could be found. However, if the enemy kept attacking, it would be difficult to break. As he was thinking, he felt a killing intent behind him. As long as the enemy's attack was within 10 meters, he would be able to sense it immediately. Yi Tianyun stepped forward, and the 5-dragon divine spear instantly appeared in his hand, and he stabbed the spear with full force. Swish! Yi Tianyun's spear was as fast as lightning, but it hit an afterimage of a black shadow. The attack didn't hit anything, but the enemy's attack still fell on Yi Tianyun. Boom! Yi Tianyun used his empty left hand to block the attack and was sent flying. At this moment, there was a deep cut on his arm, and his arm was almost cut into two. What a strong attack! Yi Tianyun sucked in a breath of cold air. This attack had at least the power of a heavenly venerable. Under normal circumstances, a heavenly venerable could be easily killed. However, it was completely different now. He couldn't see where the enemy was. How could he fight in such a situation? Yi Tianyun quickly healed the injury on his arm. He frowned. Even if his perception could quickly detect the enemy, there was a limit to what he could do within 10 meters. Chapter 1567. Yi Tianyun doesn't have much time to rest. As long as he stands in the same place for a while, he will be attacked. There is almost no blind spot where the sneak attack comes from. It depends on the mood of the opponent. Sometimes it will come from behind, sometimes directly from the front. No matter where it comes from, he can feel it. It's a test of his reaction. The distance within 10 meters gives him a very limited time to prepare. Therefore, his nerves are tense, and he is ready to fight at any time. Based on the current situation, it would be extremely difficult to break the formation here. It is difficult enough to deal with this abnormal guy, but to break this big formation, the difficulty is even higher. If I die, the 3 realms will become a masterless thing again, right? Yi Tianyun felt very speechless. Even if it is a little difficult, it should not be so fatal, right? Can't you be a little more gentle? Why is it so deadly? Shio. The attack came again. Yi Tianyun quickly dodged to the side, and at the same time threw a spear. This time did not hit the opponent, just hit the air, and did not tear the void. The void here is extremely stable. It is not easy to tear the void. Still did not hit. Yi Tianyun felt very angry. His attack is useless. He has been in a passive position. It really feels very uncomfortable. If this continues, how can I play? Void, void. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed. Is this guy hiding in the void? It is not impossible for the opponent to have the void bloodline. He met an opponent before, who often hid in the void. Because the space is very stable, it is equivalent to secretly attacking him in a solid room. It is extremely disgusting. Now he also has the power of void, but he can't enter the void here. It means he can't kill the opponent. If it is inside the void, then don't force me. Yi Tianyun sneered, and immediately moved to the system, aimed at one of the bloodline energy, and fiercely clicked to upgrade. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun, successfully upgraded the void bloodline to level 4. Yi Tianyun spent a lot of crazy points to upgrade his void bloodline to level 4. This time, he really went all out. Anyway, the void bloodline was still very powerful to him. This was especially so when it came to killing invisibly, so he often used this void bloodline. After upgrading his void bloodline to level 4, his figure flashed and he really did enter the void. After entering the void, he immediately felt the scene before him brighten up. It was no longer pitch black like before. Although it was still very dark here, many restrictions had disappeared. For example, the line of sight and spiritual sense had been completely released. The Great Formation was indeed a great formation. At the very least, this great formation could not restrict the situation inside the void. Otherwise, even their own people would not be able to enter the void at will. After entering, he immediately saw a black shadow floating beside him. His appraisal eye finally gave him some information. Previously, it was pitch black, and the appraisal eye could only identify based on his own eyes. If he couldn't even see, how could he identify? It turns out to be a tool spirit with void bloodline. Yi Tianyun looked at the black shadow in front of him and immediately knew that it was a tool spirit. Besides a tool spirit, what else could there be here? How did you come in? The tool spirit was stunned by Yi Tianyun. He was the master of this place. He controlled the space in this area. No one else could come in easily. Who knew that in the blink of an eye, Yi Tianyun came in? It means that Yi Tianyun's ability in the void far surpassed him. Shio. The answer was a domineering spear. 5 dragons roar. Roar. 5 huge dragons whizzed over, and an extremely powerful force directly suppressed it, smashing the artifact spirit into smithereens. This tool spirit was just an upper heavenly master. Under his strong attack and the title of Super Heavenly Master, it was naturally killed instantly. The tool spirit was blasted into pieces, but the tool spirit did not die. Even if he is invincible, he lives by relying on treasures. Unless the treasure is destroyed, it is very difficult for the tool spirit to die. Although he is not dead, his situation is not much better. He will definitely need to spend some effort to reform. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Tianyun quickly came out of the void and began to quickly destroy the array. He did not know where the tool spirit's body was, so it was difficult to destroy it. Moreover, he did not really want to kill this tool spirit. As long as he becomes the master of this place, all these things will be his. He definitely does not want to destroy his own things. Therefore, he can only quickly destroy the array to pass this trial. Soon, he destroyed the array one after another. At this time, the tool spirit reformed at the side. However, this time, he did not attack. Instead, he watched silently from the side. Are you not going to attack? Yi Tianyun saw the tool spirit standing there in a daze, as if he had become stupid. The tool spirit said in a low voice, "You are stronger than me. There is no point in continuing to attack you." Yi Tianyun instantly laughed. As expected of an intelligent tool spirit, he knows that he can't beat him. If he continued to attack fiercely, it would actually just be a little interference. Even his strongest trump card would be useless. Then, what is the point of fighting? Following which, he easily destroyed the array. Instantly, his eyes opened up. It is just a very ordinary hall. There are a few god seals carved under his feet. After destroying it, everything returned to its original state. This means that he passed this trial just like that. Congratulations, you have successfully passed the trial. You can continue forward or choose to withdraw. The tool spirit at the side floated over and explained. Withdraw? Yi Tianyun was startled. He hasn't even reached the end and he is already asked to withdraw. Yes, this is the last trial. The difficulty is the highest. In history, it is the most difficult level. With your cultivation, it is very likely that you will fail. The result of failure is death. The tool spirit explained, of course, if you withdraw now, you can come back next time. It does not mean that you have to pass to stop. Yi Tianyun finally understood what was going on. It turned out that he was going to take a break or go cultivate for a while before continuing. This was something that had never happened before. Either he went all the way to the end, or he had to start all over again. But now it was different. This trial was directly divided into 2 stages. So, if I had chosen to pass the dark trial before, wouldn't that be the same as seeking death? Yi Tianyun wondered. No, if your strength isn't enough and you aren't a divine inscription master, you won't be allowed to come in. The tool spirit patiently explained. Chapter 1568. The most difficult level. Yi Tianyun looked at the tunnel in front of him. It was still pitch black. Hearing this, it seemed like once he stepped in, he would never be able to come out. Yes, this is the most difficult level. Please choose carefully. If you want to go in now, you can. The artifact spirit took on the responsibility of explaining. What is the content of the trial inside? Yi Tianyun asked. I'm very sorry, I can't tell you. I can only say that it is very dangerous. It is very likely that you will die inside. The artifact spirit said solemnly. All right. Yi Tianyun didn't expect the artifact spirit to say anything. The artifact spirit definitely wouldn't say the details. Otherwise, if it explained everything clearly, how could he play? Looking at the tunnel in front of him, as long as he completed the last level, the 3 realms would be his. Now he had 2 choices. Leave for now, or go straight through. After going through, everything would be over and the truth would be revealed. With my current strength, how confident am I in passing? Yi Tianyun changed the way he asked. The artifact spirit stared at him for a while and said, 50%, 50%. Yi Tianyun was silent. The artifact spirit definitely didn't know how strong he was. It probably evaluated him based on the battle just now, or based on his performance in the trial. No matter which stage it was, to give him a 50% chance seemed really difficult. Could it be that he really had to leave this place and cultivate for a while before coming back? Just as he was thinking whether he should go straight in or leave to cultivate before coming back, his jade pendant suddenly broke. His expression changed and he chose to leave without hesitation. After leaving, he disappeared without stopping. He didn't even say a word before leaving the 3 realms and coming to the vast Shungshan Sek. Senior brother, what happened? The jade pendant in Yi Tianyun's hand broke meant that something big had happened to the vast Shungshan sect. Otherwise, the jade pendant wouldn't have broken. Only in very serious situations would there be this distress signal. You're already here? Sword Sai Heavenly Paragon and the rest were all waiting here. They looked at Yi Tianyun with astonishment. He had just crushed it and he was already here. Wasn't this speed a little too fast? After Yi Tianyun arrived, he searched along the way and found that nothing strange had happened to the vast godly sect. Everything was normal, and there didn't seem to be any changes, nor were there any attacks. That's not the main point. What's the main point? Isn't the vast divine sect under attack? Yi Tianyun asked curiously. No, that's not it at all. It's the heavenly cultivation god realm that's fighting. Sword Sai Heavenly Venerable and the others said anxiously. I don't know why, but suddenly, two great god realms started attacking the cultivation god realm. In addition, there were many internal rebellions, and it immediately exploded. What? Yi Tianyun was taken aback. Could it be the myriad heavens divine domain and the sacred peak divine domain? How did you know? Heavenly Venerable Sword Sai and the rest were stunned. How did the news spread so quickly? Or rather, you were nearby, but we didn't sense your presence at all. I previously knew that the heavenly cultivation god realm's elders colluded with other god realms and wanted them to support them. Yi Tianyun said coldly, those two god realms are the myriad heavens divine domain and the sacred peak divine domain. They can be considered old rivals. These two forces were indeed old rivals, and very old rivals at that. They had been entangled since the outer god realms until now. He had always wanted to destroy these two forces, but he didn't have the time, and his cultivation wasn't strong enough. Since the two god realms could gain a foothold here, they definitely had their own extraordinary side. If they casually attacked, it would be easy for problems to arise. But now, the two god realms actually made a move so quickly, and they didn't know why. You even know this? Sword Sai Heavenly Venerable and the others were stunned. They were the only ones who didn't know. Yes, I found this information in the mind of one of the heavenly cultivation god realm's elders. I asked the heavenly cultivation god realm's lord to investigate, and then it became like this. Could the investigation be the fuse? The information in Yi Tianyun's mind spun rapidly, and after a moment, his eyes revealed shock. Could it be that the evil spirit race made a move? Thinking about it carefully, the sacred peak divine domain had something to do with the evil spirit race. It was possible that the fifth grade god realm had asked the sacred peak divine domain to attack the heavenly cultivation god realm, and for some reason, they pulled in the myriad heavens divine domain. The evil spirit race made a move. Could it be that there is an evil spirit race stationed in the myriad heavens divine domain? Sword Sai Heavenly Venerable and the others had just heard about it recently, and the information was gradually spreading. It was just that most of them hadn't seen it before, so no one knew whether it was true or not. That's what I mean. Then what do we do now? Do we go over to support them? Yi Tianyun asked. Of course, Master and the others were besieged by a group of elders and experts from the outer god realms. Many geniuses chose to rebel, but those with low cultivations all chose to stand on Master's side. There are many of them, but their cultivations are all relatively low. Sword Sai Heavenly Venerable smiled bitterly. Looks like we have something to do with this matter. It's a little related, but that's because Master stole their benefits. How could they not be angry and rebel? They wanted to grasp great power in the first place. I suspect that it's related to the evil spirit race, and they gradually want to take these divine domains for themselves. The more Yi Tianyun thought about it, the more he felt afraid. The evil spirit race's infiltration was extremely shocking. Not only the evil spirit race, but the other races in the Battle of the God Emperor were also constantly expanding their forces. They wanted to completely turn things around one day and become the true masters of the inner god realm. We are disrupting their plans in advance. Otherwise, when they completely grasp great power, the heavenly cultivation god realm will be finished. Yi Tianyun said in a deep voice, it seems that from the beginning, the heavenly cultivation god realm has been extremely chaotic, and its roots have long since decayed to a terrifying extent. When Master returns, forget about reforming it. There's a bunch of traitors here, how can we reform it? Then there's no time to lose, let's hurry over and support Master now. Maybe we won't be of much use, but we can help a little, just a little. Sword Sai Heavenly Venerable and the others' cultivation was not weak, but facing a heavenly god, they were really cannon fodder. However, it was impossible for them to watch their master be besieged, and it was the same for Yi Tianyun. Chapter 1569. After making some preparations, Yi Tianyun and the others immediately headed to the Heaven Cultivation God Realm, discussing countermeasures along the way. However, how to deal with it depended on the situation there. Flying at full speed, they quickly arrived at the Heaven Cultivation God Realm. Just as they arrived outside the passageway, they saw a group of powerhouses guarding outside, all at the level of middle heavenly venerables and above. All of them stared at this side, and whoever dared to barge in would be killed without mercy. They aren't disciples of the Heaven Cultivation God Realm, but disciples of other God Realms. The passageway was so easily controlled. It seems that there are many traitors. When Sword Ruler and the others saw that the passageways were controlled by other disciples, they knew that there were many traitors. If there weren't many traitors, it would be very easy to know that someone had barged in. If a large number of powerhouses came, they would immediately notify the elders to come and support, or immediately close the passageway, which could stop the invasion of strong enemies. Now that they had completely fallen, it meant that there were many traitors. It seems that the Heaven Cultivation God Realm is really hard to say this time. Yi Tianyun shook his head. No wonder Master didn't let us join. If we joined and something happened, we would definitely be in trouble. Yi Tianyun only now knew that the great Devas probably knew a lot of things, which was why he didn't let them join. Right, it seems that we can only barge in, otherwise we won't be able to enter at all. Sword Ruler and the others took out their weapons, preparing for battle. Yi Tianyun's weapon was a low heavenly venerable spirit treasure. In fact, with his cultivation, he could already make a middle heavenly venerable spirit treasure, but he didn't have the time to do so. If we barge in, we will alert the enemy and let the cultivators inside know that we went in. Yi Tianyun signaled for them to stop and not rush in. But if we don't barge in, how do we go in? It seems that the inside is surrounded, or the exit is blocked. It's not possible to come out. Sword Ruler said with a stern expression, although it won't fall so quickly, the situation is definitely not good, especially with the exit blocked. Yi Tianyun nodded, agreeing with heavenly venerable sword size words. The great Devas and the others would definitely not be defeated so quickly. No matter what, they had a large number of loyal elders by their side. Even if they were a little less than the celestial realms that were besieging them, there were still quite a number of heavenly gods among them. If they could easily fall into the enemy's hands, then they would be too weak. No matter what, they would be able to hold on for a period of time. It's very simple. In the past, I really couldn't do this, but now it's different. Yi Tianyun smiled and gestured for them to grab him. He then took a step forward and dragged his 4 senior brothers and the rest into the rift. After entering the void, everything was the same as usual. He could still see the scenery outside from the void. Previously, when its grade was still low, it was impossible for it to casually bring in people. Now, however, it was different. After its grade had risen significantly, it could bring in 4 people at once. After bringing them in, Yi Tianyun swaggered over with them. Under their shocked gazes, they easily passed through the passage and entered the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm. After gradually going far away, they found a remote corner, and Yi Tianyun brought them out. Huff! After dragging them out, Yi Tianyun let out a deep breath. Bringing 4 people into the void in one go consumed a lot of energy. More than half of his energy was depleted in an instant. However, he immediately swallowed a medicinal pill and quickly recovered the portion that was consumed. Little junior brother, you're too amazing. You walked in so easily. It's like you're in your own backyard. Heavenly Venerable Sword Sai and the others were stunned. After entering, those guards didn't notice them, and they swaggered past in front of them. If it was a sneak attack, they would have been decapitated long ago. With a slight improvement in ability, this effect can be achieved. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, however, the consumption is really great. Now is not the time to praise me. Let's hurry over. All right. They didn't say much. Their main goal now was to see the situation of the great Devas. Then, they concealed their auras and quietly flew forward. Along the way, they discovered that the situation of many planets was rather bad, and they were all controlled by a group of experts. These experts were from the myriad heaven divine realm, the sacred peak divine realm, and the evil spirit race. That's right, the experts of the three great powers had all come. How could they not be suppressed? This evil spirit race is really bold. Are they really not afraid of those hidden existences? Yi Tianyun knew what the hidden existences that the heavenly cultivation domain lord was talking about were. They were the ancient experts from a long time ago. The ancient experts had survived the battle of the divine lord. Some of them had a blood feud with the evil spirit race, while others were hiding. When they saw something, they would come out of seclusion to suppress it. No matter what kind of thoughts they had, they all hated the evil spirit race very much. But the evil spirit race was just that bold. They were really unbridled and attacked here. They weren't even afraid of the foundation of the heaven cultivation divine realm. There must be powerful existences in the heaven cultivation divine realm. It was impossible for there to be only a small number of experts here. The evil spirit race isn't just bold, they are simply audacious. Heavenly Sovereign Gen Sai said sternly, it seems like they are very confident. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to do this. Yes, but it seems like their main goal is to control all the forces and completely occupy the heaven cultivation divine realm. Heavenly Sovereign Yu Chen said. The cultivators in these controlled planets weren't considered powerful. They were only around the Earth monarch level, and the strongest was only the Lord of Heaven. As long as a few heavenly sovereigns were sent down, it would be enough to suppress them and make them not dare to act rashly. If they made a slight move, they would be easily killed. In the face of powerful cultivation, a large number of people was a pile of trash. They were expressionless as they watched from the side. There was no need to send too many heavenly sovereigns to guard a planet, only 2 were enough. Little junior brother, what do you think we should do now? Heavenly Sovereign Gen Sai pointed at them and said. Right now, they were all centered around Yi Tianyun, mainly because Yi Tianyun was more capable and had brought them in easily. Unknowingly, they all wanted to ask Yi Tianyun about his plan. Is there a need to say that? Get rid of them one by one, don't leave a single one alive. Yi Tianyun's gaze was ice cold. He definitely wouldn't show any mercy when dealing with these enemies. If he could kill them, he definitely wouldn't let them go. Chapter 1570. In the main temple of the Heaven Cultivation God Realm, there were many powerhouses surrounding them. The Great Devas, the Heaven Cultivation Domain Lord, and the others were all trapped inside. At the outermost area, there were many sky gods firmly sealing them. At the same time, there was also a powerful formation that locked them inside. No wonder the Great Devas and the others couldn't come out. Just this formation alone was enough to temporarily trap them inside. Even if they wanted to break it, it would take some time. You traitors, you actually colluded with the outer god realms. Most importantly, you even colluded with the evil spirit race. Your crimes are truly unforgivable. The Heaven Cultivation Domain Lord looked at them angrily. He looked around and saw many familiar faces standing opposite him. However, they weren't the elders at the front. The first elder, who had a grudge against the Great Devas, was now the second elder, as well as the third elder and the others who supported the genius faction. They didn't betray and still chose to stand on this side. They were originally loyal to the Heaven Cultivation God Realm. They just had different ideas when it came to selecting cultivators. Loyalty was still loyalty, and the ones who truly rebelled were the elders who were ranked at the back. However, they were still elders, and they were also highly respected elders. Betraying one was extremely painful. To be able to become an elder meant that they had made a lot of contributions and invested a lot of resources. Who knew that in the end, they were ingrates. Now, the elders at the back were all standing opposite them. Not only that, but there were also many genius disciples standing opposite them. As for those powerhouses with average talent or disciples with average talent, they didn't betray and were all sealed here. This made the second elder and the others feel bitter. Most of the genius disciples that they had painstakingly nurtured had run to the other side. How could they not feel heartache? To them, this was a great irony. What was the use of spending so much money to nurture them? Didn't they still become someone else's disciple? Colluding with outsiders? When did we say that we were people of the Heaven Cultivation God Realm? One of the elders laughed loudly, feeling that everything was so ridiculous. The rest of the elders also laughed. From the beginning, they were not people of the heavenly cultivation god realm. They were just spies that were planted here. These words made them explode with anger. They had raised him for so many years, but no matter how much they raised him, he still couldn't get used to it. The great Davis's expression was indifferent. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with their betrayal. After checking the name list, they already knew who the traitor was. It was exactly the same as what Yi Tianyun had said. Doesn't your conscience hurt? We nurtured you like this, but you treat us like this. One of the elders roared angrily. Nurture us? That's your business, it has nothing to do with us. One of the elders pointed at the great Devas and sneered, but it was supposed to be fine. I didn't expect you to come back and cause trouble, otherwise, we would definitely be able to rise step by step, and finally become the candidate for the heavenly cultivation domain lord. In this place, it was either the great elder or the next domain master. Everything depended on one's contributions and prestige. But the most important thing is that you provoked the Lord. They all sneered, then moved to the side to make space. Immediately, a familiar figure slowly walked over from behind. It was the familiar person from before, Heavenly God Avalon. Heavenly God Avalon slowly walked over and said with a smile, I already said that the heavenly cultivation domain would slowly kill you. But now, I don't intend to do it slowly. I'll directly kill you. Or rather, I'll directly turn the heavenly cultivation domain into my divine domain. Also, you said before that I'm not afraid of those hidden old farts. To be honest, I'm not afraid at all. If you have the ability, come out. I suspect that they won't come out. They're all dead. He laughed out loud, completely ignoring those ancient existences. Is that so? I don't think so. I think that group of people will soon reappear, and when that time comes, they'll massacre everything. Heavenly cultivation domain lord said coldly. Heavenly God Avalon's eyes narrowed. After calming down a little, he continued to mock them. Of course, the key is that your old farts have all been sealed by us. You don't have anything to rely on anymore. How can you make a comeback? Don't count on those old farts. You can't even protect yourselves, so what else can you save? The heavenly cultivation domain's patriarchs were all sealed. The patriarchs were all in seclusion. They only needed to use a little trick to seal the perimeter. In fact, this great formation definitely couldn't trap them, but they were all in seclusion. As long as they surrounded the perimeter and didn't let anyone leak information, then these patriarchs would be no different from being trapped to death. By the time these patriarchs reacted, the outside had already been completely occupied. There was no point in coming out. Heavenly cultivation domain lord and the others were silent. Some of their eyes burned with anger, but there was nothing they could do. They were all trapped, so there was no way to ask for help. Sigh. If Father was a little more ruthless, perhaps this situation wouldn't have happened. Heavenly cultivation domain lord called himself Father, which meant that he was using his status as a father to talk to the great Devas. From his tone, one could hear the guilt in it. If he had killed them or captured them, then this situation wouldn't have happened. But there were no IFS. Things had already happened. By the time he investigated, the other party had already carried out the plan. Father, there's no need to feel guilty about this. You've always prioritized the bigger picture, and you're even more helpless. I've really learned a lot over the past few days. The boundless sky god sighed deeply. After a thorough investigation, he realized that his father was just putting up a front. Previously, he seemed to oppose him and treat him badly. Everything was to protect him, and he also wanted his son to change the heavenly cultivation domain. After all, the heavenly cultivation domain lord's authority wasn't low, but it wasn't absolute. If he wanted to change everything, it would depend on whether the great Devas could play a role. However, the heavenly cultivation domain had already decayed. By the time it was fixed, it was already too late. While sighing, Yi Tianyun was hiding in a corner. He was alone. The rest of the senior brothers went to the planets one by one and killed the traitors. Everything was done quietly. Those patriarchs are all trapped. Then let's go and free them. The situation will be reversed soon. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed. Chapter 1571. While they were still in a stalemate, Yi Tianyun quickly turned to the patriarch's area. He had never been to this area before, but he could roughly tell from its appearance. How could the patriarch's seclusion place be bad? Of course, it couldn't be bad. It must be an extremely powerful core. After a while, he easily found it. It was simply and crudely sitting on a grade 6 core. The surrounding area was very good. Looking closely, there were heavy guards outside, and there were 2 heavenly god powerhouses. As for the other heavenly venerable powerhouses, there was no need to say much. Sending 2 heavenly gods to guard here was enough to show how important this place was. Yi Tianyun probed a little and immediately determined that this was the area where the patriarch was in seclusion. He especially set up a shielding array around the periphery. In fact, it was to block the energy emitted from the outside, especially the energy from the battle. All of it was blocked outside. This was not a difficult array. It was a very simple and crude shielding array, and its grade was still relatively low. But for the patriarchs in seclusion, it was the most effective array. After all, if the energy of the battle outside was transmitted over, these patriarchs would immediately be startled awake. Therefore, under normal circumstances, there absolutely could not be any fighting around here. Once it happened, it would be extremely severe. These patriarchs could not be mobilized casually. If they found out that they were disturbed, one could imagine how furious they would be. Therefore, a simple shielding array was enough. They would guard here, and whoever appeared nearby would be killed immediately. They were also extremely cautious now, keeping a close eye on the surroundings and not letting anyone come over. Hiding on the side, Yi Tianyun did not think that his power of the void could escape their detection. Heavenly gods were much stronger than heavenly venerables. Previously, those guarding the passageway were all heavenly venerables, so it was naturally easy to hide from them. Now that they were facing heavenly gods, they would probably be discovered as soon as they got close. Hiding in the void, they would still be attacked. Perhaps it would reduce the power a little, but they would still be attacked. Looks like I have to go over with a low profile again. Yi Tianyun smiled slightly. He thought of the idiots he had faced before. Or rather, he had always faced idiots. Now it all depended on his acting skills. Then, Yi Tianyun pretended to be flustered as he flew over, his body swaying unsteadily. As soon as he flew over, he was immediately detected by the 2 great Empyrean gods. The 2 of them were evil spirit races Empyrean gods, and were even stronger than ordinary Empyrean gods. It's a human cultivator. The 2 heavenly deities quickly looked over and stared fixedly at Yi Tianyun. They quickly sensed that Yi Tianyun's cultivation base was only that of a middle-level heavenly venerable. From the looks of it, he must have escaped from another planet. Kill him. Without much nonsense, as long as they came close, they would naturally kill without mercy. Immediately, one of the evil spirit heavenly deity rushed toward Yi Tianyun and grabbed the void, and a powerful heavenly deity's power shrouded the area around Yi Tianyun. After sealing off the area, the evil spirit god immediately wanted to kill Yi Tianyun. He didn't even want to wait for him to speak, let alone subdue him. He just wanted to kill him. The mission they had received was very simple. As long as it wasn't one of their own, kill without mercy, no matter who it was. Even if it was a super prodigy from the divine realm or a princess, as long as they came close, they would all be killed. The instant the evil spirit god was about to kill Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed, and his drifting figure quickly swept over, directly exploding with his strongest power. Boom! The violent power pierced through the evil spirit god. The instant the evil spirit god was torn to pieces, the 5-dragon divine spear quickly swept out, turning into a myriad of divine lights that enveloped the evil spirit god. The title of the evil spirit race assassin was fully displayed here. The damage he dealt was greatly increased. In an instant, the evil spirit god was easily killed, turning into a mist of blood. Ding! Successfully killed the evil spirit god. Obtained 6 million compressed experience points. You have successfully killed the evil spirit god. Obtained an additional 100,000 compressed experience points. The combination of the violent power and the title of the evil spirit god assassin was enough to give him heaven-defying lethality. The evil spirit god assassin could increase his damage, but as the opponent's cultivation level increased, the power would gradually decrease. Although there was a decrease, it didn't decrease by much. From the previous 15 times, the power was reduced to 10 times. This was already very satisfactory to him. What was there to be dissatisfied with to be able to increase his damage by 10 times? Sneak attack. The other heavenly god's eyes widened when he saw his companion being killed in an instant. It looked like a heavenly venerate that was fleeing in a panic had suddenly exploded with such powerful power. He wasn't fleeing in a panic at all. He was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, and he was here to launch a sneak attack. Then, he quickly took out his jade pendant and was about to crush it to send the news that he had been sneak attacked when a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Die. Yi Tianyun's eyes were cold, and he attacked fiercely while his opponent was still sending the message. The divine spear in his hand danced wildly, and each of his attacks was fatal. The violent power once again insta-killed the evil spirit god. The evil spirit god had thought that Yi Tianyun wouldn't arrive so quickly, but now it seemed that he was too naive. He didn't even have time to defend properly before he died. If he hadn't sent the message first and had immediately summoned the heavenly venerate spirit treasure, he might have been able to resist for a while and successfully send the message. Now, he didn't have such a chance, and he had completely turned into cosmic dust. Yi Tianyun didn't stop and continued to kill the other heavenly venerate guards. Only then did they react, but they didn't have the qualifications to send the message. They might be able to send the message, but it wasn't to the main person. Regardless of whether they could send the message or not, Yi Tianyun had already quickly killed his way over. With a wave of saber light and sword shadows, they were all beheaded, allowing Yi Tianyun to harvest a wave of experience points, which made him feel very satisfied. Done. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed, and he looked around. Finally, his gaze focused on the planet in front of him. It was time to wake up these old ancestors. The situation was urgent, and he didn't hesitate. He fiercely swung his spear over, and a rainbow-like light condensed into a line that charged straight into the great array in front of him. As long as he destroyed this great array and caused an explosion inside, then all the old ancestors would naturally wake up. He wanted it to be this simple and violent. It would be too late for him to knock on the door and wake them up. How could the old ancestors' seclusion grounds be simple? He couldn't break it even if he wanted to. When this attack was about to hit the great array, a figure came out from inside and patted the attack lightly, dissipating it into a pile of colorful light spots. Yi Tianyun's attack was actually dissipated. Chapter 1572. Yi Tianyun's heart sank when he saw the old man who had suddenly appeared in front of him. He did not expect that there would be another variable at this time. Empyrean God Tower Cloud, Primordial Empyrean God Expert. Mid-stage Empyrean God. One of the patriarchs who trained in the Empyrean God realm. He has a powerful, primordial bloodline in his veins, and when he explodes with power, he can tear through anything with his claws. His bloodline was the precious bloodline of the Blood Wolf King. It had no weaknesses. The detailed information was analyzed bit by bit. Every piece of information that was analyzed was incomparably terrifying. Most importantly, this was the patriarch of the heavenly cultivation god realm. The old ancestor of the heaven cultivation god realm came out to block Yi Tianyun's attack and didn't even help. Without a doubt, he was a traitor. I'm indeed not a disciple of the heavenly god realm. I wonder if I can awaken the other patriarchs and join the rescue? Yi Tianyun's expression was calm. He already knew that the other party was a traitor, but he didn't expect them to hide it so deeply. He hadn't been able to find any memories of Empyrean God Tower Cloud. This could only mean that Empyrean God Monstrous Cloud's Urge had hidden himself very well. For him to only appear now, it seemed that his plan really was quite insidious. Overall, there weren't many ancient heavenly gods here, only 5. Empyrean God Tower Cloud was one of the traitors. He naturally wouldn't dare to act rashly. Even if he wanted to subdue the other Empyrean gods, it would be extremely difficult. Moreover, why did he have to subdue the other Empyrean gods? As their companions, if he could say a few words on the side, he would be able to have his senior brothers help him take care of everything, so why not? Little friend, you don't have to worry about this. Just go to hell. If you meddle in other people's business, you will die early. Empyrean god Tower Cloud waved a finger, causing the surrounding Empyrean god's power to completely lock down the area. In terms of both the power of the seal and the speed at which it moved, it vastly outstripped the other Empyrean gods. It could even be said that he was several levels stronger than the Heaven Cultivation Region Lord, who was also an intermediate heavenly god. This was related to his bloodline. The ancient bloodline allowed him to be much stronger than other heavenly gods of the same level. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed. The other party attacked without warning and looked at him as if he was looking at a lowly ant. Even though he had killed 2 heavenly gods earlier, he still didn't think they were worthy of his attention. It should be said that any cultivator without an ancient bloodline was a lowly existence in his eyes. This was the arrogance of a bloodline that could override everything. As a matter of fact, he could really reign above everything. He was much stronger than those of the same level. Yi Tianyun was able to tell from a simple scan that he was a level more powerful than even Empyrean god Veren. It was no wonder that they had to seal this place to prevent the old ancestor from coming out. If all 5 old ancestors were to come out, then the experts sent over would be easily suppressed. As for the Myriad Sky Sacred Realm and the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm, their foundations were not as strong, so the experts they sent were not at the ancient era level. In fact, in their headquarters, there were no ancient heavenly gods. At most, there would be 1 or 2. Compared to this place, the difference was too great. Under normal circumstances, ancient-level heavenly gods wouldn't casually come out. They would usually be in secluded cultivation to break through. Having cultivated to this realm, they had already seen too much. They had no more desires and only wanted to charge into the God-Emperor realm. He was not interested in the rest of the power. After all, there were very few existences at their level who could contend against them. As long as they didn't have nothing better to do, they wouldn't die. In the face of the rapidly sealing power, Yi Tianyun merely grinned. Is that so? But compared to the other heavenly gods, you are quite stupid. Empyrean god Tower Cloud faltered. He didn't know what Yi Tianyun was talking about. However, there was one thing he knew for sure. Yi Tianyun was calling him stupid. In the next moment, Yi Tianyun's figure disappeared from the place he was standing, and he directly drilled into the void, and then he slammed into the barrier that sealed the barrier. With a loud boom, the sealing barrier was smashed apart. His body flashed, and he instantly teleported through the void. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared. Empyrean god Tower Cloud was stunned. His spiritual sense had actually lost its target. After that, Yi Tianyun appeared outside the barrier formation. He stabbed his spear into the ground, and a surge of energy surged forth, shattering the barrier formation. At the same time, a violent surge of energy surged forth in all directions, including toward the secluded cultivation area up ahead. Empyrean god Tower Cloud finally understood why he had called him stupid. Just like the other 2 heavenly gods, he had greatly underestimated Yi Tianyun's power. Empyrean god Tower Cloud was using quite a bit of power, but to Yi Tianyun, it was still too weak. As long as he didn't use more than half of his power, it would be useless. There should be no more problems now. Yi Tianyun stared at the surging energy. Even if those ancestors were in secluded cultivation like dead pigs, they should still be able to awaken, right? As the energy surged over, it violently affected the situation in the surroundings. Soon, everything returned to normal, having been absorbed by the surrounding grand formation. The defenses here were freakishly powerful, and his attacks were unable to inflict any damage. His goal was not to destroy this place anyway, all he wanted was to awaken them. Just as he was waiting for these heavenly gods to awaken, he was immediately struck by a sense of peril from behind him. He reflexively hid in space while attempting to use instant teleportation to escape from this place. He didn't even need to turn around to know that Empyrean god Tower Cloud had been enraged and was charging toward him. You want to run? Empyrean god Tower Cloud was completely enraged, and he made a grabbing motion. Sharp claws extended from his hands, which tore through the space around him. The space in front of Yi Tianyun had been torn into many shreds, making it impossible for him to crawl through. At the same time, his claws came crashing down viciously, trying to tear him into countless shreds. A powerful sealing power was also imbued within his claws. Empyrean god Towercloud had truly unleashed his power this time, and it was an extremely powerful one at that. A sense of impending doom immediately swept toward him from behind. He couldn't even teleport now, so he could only turn around and defend himself with his 5-dragon divine spear. 5-dragon roars. Roar. 5 violent dragons roared through the air, but they were also torn into countless pieces by Empyrean god Towercloud's powerful claws. The 5 claws pierced through the 5 massive dragons and through Yi Qianyun's body as if they were slicing through a piece of tofu. After piercing through Yi Qianyun's body, the claws clawed viciously into the ground, upon which a sharp screeching sound erupted. 5 gashes instantly appeared on the hard ground. Yi Qianyun's body was immediately sliced into 5 pieces before crashing into the ground. Insta-kill. A mere ant dares to act so arrogantly before me? Empyrean god Towercloud chuckled coldly. Did he think he was an old man just because he hadn't unleashed his might? Chapter 1573. What's going on? At this time, 2 old ancestors rushed out of the seclusion room. Their aura was very powerful, even stronger than Dao Yun. They quickly flew out and saw the traces of battle around them. There was also a corpse on the ground, which made them frown. What's going on? Did an intruder come in? One of the old ancestors asked. Dao Yun said calmly, "It's nothing, it's just some little guys who wanted to disturb our seclusion. I have already dealt with them. Later, I will tell the others to pay more attention to this matter. They must not disturb our seclusion." The 2 old ancestors were startled, but they shook their head and said, "You don't have to be so exaggerated, who didn't do something wrong? Dao Yun, you are too irritable, you need to calm down and cultivate properly. Big brother is right, let's go back to seclusion now." Dao Yun signaled them to go back quickly. Only he knows the situation. The 2 old ancestors didn't suspect anything, but when they turned around and wanted to go back, a large flame suddenly appeared on the corpse and wrapped it up. In less than a moment, a handsome young man reappeared in front of everyone. Fire rebirth. The ability of Dragon Phoenix Divine Vein appeared again. It perfectly allowed him to be reborn. Although the cooldown time is relatively long, but after leveling up, the cooldown time will be recalculated, and it will be greatly reduced. Moreover, Yi Qianyun knows that these are very important, so he will immediately remove the cooldown time, especially in the face of danger. In order to save his life, he will immediately remove the cooldown time. Of course, if he doesn't have Dragon Phoenix Divine Vein, he can still use life to resurrect, but the consumption of Crazy Point is slightly higher. But he can afford to use it now, so there is no problem. Old ancestor, please don't leave. Yi Qianyun came out of the fire and said, "Cultivation Heaven Divine Domain was attacked by evil spirit race, and now the main hall is surrounded. If Senior doesn't believe me, you can immediately use your spiritual sense to investigate, and if there is a bit of fossard, this junior will let Senior deal with it." Yi Qianyun said a series of words, which made them confused. Especially Dao Yun, he really didn't expect that Yi Qianyun can survive his attack. What kind of ability is this? By the time he reacted, it was already too late. Yi Qianyun had already said everything that he wanted to say. Evil spirit race attacked. The 2 old ancestors were taken aback, and immediately their expressions became serious. Without any doubt, they immediately investigated. It was not that they trusted Yi Qianyun very much, but they would rather believe it than not. After they probed with their spiritual senses, one of the patriarchs said coldly, "It really is the evil spirit race." There are also other experts from the divine realm who have already attacked and surrounded the main hall. Their spiritual senses were extremely astonishing. They could easily cover an area and investigate the situation in the main hall. Naturally, it was not a problem for them. More importantly, no one came to inform us. Instead, an outsider came. They could recognize that Yi Qianyun is an outsider, mainly because he is a human. In the past, the divine realm would not accept a human as a disciple. This is really a kind of discrimination, but things are so cruel. Because your area is covered by a barrier formation, you can't feel the fluctuations outside, so I came to destroy the formation. But before I could destroy it, I was discovered by this old ancestor, who immediately stopped me and didn't let me destroy the formation. I don't need to explain his intentions. Yi Tianyun said coldly. Yi Tianyun didn't explain clearly. The two old ancestors looked over, wanting to see something from their companion's expression. Empyrean god Daoyun, however, said calmly, "That's utter nonsense. I see that you, an outsider disciple, have committed a capital offense by trespassing here. I attacked casually. As for this barrier formation, I will naturally deal with it. In my opinion, you are more likely a disciple sent by another divine realm, and you are the one who set up the formation." Not only did Daoyun not panic, but he also fiercely attacked Yi Tianyun, refusing to admit that he is the traitor. "Is that so? Since you know about this formation, you must have checked the situation outside, right? Why did you ask the seniors to go back into seclusion instead of going to rescue them?" Yi Tianyun pointed at him and said coldly, "Without a doubt, you are the traitor, and I am indeed not a disciple of the divine realm of cultivation, but I am a disciple of the great Devas. I would never do such a rebellious thing." Yi Tianyun's tone was firm and convincing. This was especially true when it was backed up by evidence. It directly shut up Heavenly God Taoyun's words, and viciously tore apart Heavenly God Taoyun's face, tearing apart this hypocritical content. Daoyun's expression darkened. There was nothing wrong with what he just said. If Yi Tianyun hadn't come back to life, the two ancestors definitely wouldn't have checked the situation outside. Instead, they would have obediently gone back into seclusion. This was the trust between companions, and they definitely wouldn't have checked the situation outside for no reason. Who would have thought that a freak would appear out of nowhere and ruin everything? "Daoyun, your words do make some sense." One of the ancestors stared at his companion and said in a low voice, "Please give us an explanation." "Is that true?" They weren't idiots, and they wouldn't easily believe the words of an outsider. However, Yi Tianyun's words made a lot of sense. Daoyun didn't know what was going on outside. That was impossible. He definitely knew what was going on outside, and he knew that an outsider had come in, so he would definitely investigate the situation outside. However, Daoyun didn't investigate, and he even persuaded them to go back into seclusion. This meant that there really was a ghost. Daoyun's expression was dark and uncertain. He didn't think that all of his efforts would go to waste because of a human brat. "Die!" Daoyun roared furiously, and he viciously slapped toward Yi Tianyun, wanting to kill Yi Tianyun again. Yi Tianyun was already prepared, and he had already teleported away at this moment, dodging to the side. Boom! Daoyun's attack heavily struck the area where Yi Tianyun was, and a loud boom rang out. Daoyun didn't continue to fight, and he instead flew away, transforming into a beam of light and quickly escaping from this area. He didn't cause any conflict with the other ancestors. However, the two of them didn't chase after him, and they allowed him to escape. "Big brother, aren't we going to chase after him?" the ancestor beside him asked. Chapter 1574. Two of the patriarchs quickly went to wake up the other two patriarchs. All four patriarchs had emerged from seclusion. After learning of Empyrean god Towercloud's betrayal, their faces were strangely calm. They didn't become enraged at all. "The next time we meet, we'll be enemies," they shook their heads. Their hearts were filled with complicated feelings. How could they betray him just like that? Could it be that they had mistreated Empyrean god Towering Cloud? As for what the real answer was, he could only find out in detail the next time they met. The four patriarchs all came to a consensus. The next time they met would be the day of Empyrean god Towercloud's death. They did not allow betrayal. It should be said that no one liked betrayal. Betrayers had to die. Unfortunately, there was a huge problem with the Heaven Cultivation God realm. He had to resolve the situation here first and put everything else aside for the time being. "Little friend, thank you for your help. I won't say much else. After we settle this matter, I'll reward you handsomely." The patriarch in the lead was the one who had been referred to as Big Brother. His name was Heavenly God Yu Dang. His cultivation was the strongest, and he was at the upper Heavenly God realm. An ancient Heavenly God of the upper Heavenly God level, needless to say, was definitely at a heaven-defying level. However, he didn't try to stop Empyrean God Towercloud. As his old friend, he naturally knew what he was up to. It was true that there was a gap in their cultivation, but it was impossible for them to stop it easily. The most important thing now was to pacify the heavenly cultivation god realm. Immediately afterwards, they rushed towards the main palace, preparing to assist Region Lord Xiu Tian and the others. Yi Tianyun also followed along. He couldn't miss this opportunity. The ancient heavenly god is truly terrifying. Yi Tianyun's heart palpitated. That claw just now had instantly killed him. If he didn't have the ability to rise from the ashes, he would have been dead for sure. After being killed, he still had a little bit of consciousness left, so he deliberately did not rush to be reborn. Instead, he observed the situation around him. After those old ancestors came out, they would be reborn. That would be the perfect result. If his consciousness completely disappeared, it would automatically trigger the rebirth effect. To put it bluntly, he was completely dead and had no consciousness at all. Then, the rebirth effect would be automatically triggered. He might not be able to deal with Empyrean god Monstrous Cloud, but what about the other patriarchs? This meant that he couldn't use force, he could only use his wit. At the same time, the battle in the main hall was already in full swing, reaching its climax. They had already begun to fight. The battle was in a stalemate, and no one could easily defeat the other. Quite powerful. After exchanging blows with Domain Lord Heavensaw, Empyrean god Veren quickly retreated. Faced with Domain Lord Heavensaw's attacks, he cut quite a sorry figure. At this moment, there were many tokens in his hand. He looked at them coldly and said, "As long as I crush these tokens, my subordinates will immediately take action. When that happens, your other planets will immediately be wiped out indiscriminately." Their faces instantly changed. They didn't feel that Empyrean god Avalon was lying, it was the truth. They were all trapped here, and it was normal for the other planets to be controlled. What do you want to do? The heavenly cultivation domain lord's face was gloomy. If he really did that, then his heavenly cultivation domain would suffer a great loss. The other disciples were quite talented, and with a little nurturing, they could become decent pillars of support. If they lost the most basic disciple in the divine realm, how would they develop? Therefore, their hearts tightened. This guy was really too despicable. What do I want to do? Empyrean god Avalon sneered. It's very simple. Just kill yourself, and I won't do anything. Are you joking? The great Devas said coldly, if we kill ourselves, then you won't do anything. Don't treat us like fools. Do it if you want to. They weren't that great to ask them to kill themselves. Especially after they died, could they guarantee that they wouldn't do anything? Perhaps they wouldn't be killed, but it was no different from being a slave. Especially if they all died, what did it have to do with him if the others died? It wasn't that they were selfish, but if they died, the heavenly cultivation domain would no longer be the heavenly cultivation domain. Empyrean god Avalon's face was ugly. He didn't expect the great Devas to answer so decisively. He immediately pointed at him and said, "Then I'll change my condition. As long as you kill yourself, I'll let 5 planets go. How about that?" Empyrean god Avalon immediately turned against the great Devas. He wanted to see the great Devas die. The heavenly cultivation domain lord's face became even uglier. He took a step forward and said coldly, "Don't talk so much nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. If you want to crush it, then crush it. I'll make you wish you were dead." He absolutely couldn't let his son die. Even if everyone added up, they wouldn't be as good as his son. It seems like you're really ruthless. In that case, why don't you destroy a few planets first to play? The jade pendant in Empyrean god Avalon's hand was about to be crushed at any time. Once it was crushed, his subordinates would immediately attack. Then crush it all you want. Let's see if your subordinates have any reaction. At this time, Heavenly Paragon Sword Ruler and the others appeared on the side. You guys. When the great Devas saw his disciples appear, he felt touched. He didn't expect them to appear at this critical moment. "Master, don't worry. Those trash have been cleaned up by us. All areas are very safe." Heavenly Paragon Sword Ruler and the others smiled. It seemed like their decision was correct. Otherwise, they would have been threatened and could only watch as piles of lives disappeared. "Very good. You guys have done well." The great Devas was very satisfied. He didn't expect Heavenly Paragon Sword Ruler and the others to give him such a big surprise. This way, they wouldn't be able to attack the disciples of the Heavenly Cultivation Domain. I don't believe it. Empyrean God Avalon didn't believe it. He crushed the jade pendant in his hand, turning it into a pile of powder that drifted away. The jade pendant was crushed, but there were no signs of fighting on the other planets. It was still the same as usual. This meant that all his subordinates had been killed, and not a single one was left. Now he had to believe that the subordinates he arranged in the other planets had all been killed. Damn it, I didn't expect there to be such a loophole. Empyrean God Avalon gritted his teeth and said, in that case, let's see who can survive until the end. He stretched out his hand and signaled everyone to move out. He wanted to threaten them. Since threats didn't work, he could only use force. Kill. Empyrean God Avalon led the charge, and the other Empyrean gods followed. Now that they were all tied together, if they didn't destroy the Heavenly Cultivation Domain, it would be their god domains that were destroyed. Chapter 1575. The battle began once again, and the two sides began to fight. All of them used their full strength, and every move was fatal. If they could kill in one move, they definitely wouldn't use two. Although Heavenly God Waylon had the support of two divine domains and the evil spirit race, it was not that easy to take down the Shotian region lord. However, to Heavenly God Waylon, as long as he could take down this place, no matter how many sacrifices he had, it would be considered a victory. The Shotian region lord's side had always been in a passive state and had always been suppressed. They could only forcefully resist. Especially when facing those traitors, they were both furious and heartbroken. Former companions or former comrades had become enemies just like that. One could imagine how they felt. Some of them were soft-hearted and couldn't attack their companions, but the other party didn't hesitate to slash at them. This was the difference. From the very beginning, they had been ruthless and had no intention of integrating into this place. Their mission in here was very simple, which was to integrate into this place. When they were needed one day, they would fight back. It was that simple. Gradually, after some sacrifices, many people came to their senses. Their former companions were no longer their companions, but their enemies. Kill. They pounced forward crazily and attacked fiercely. Anger and sorrow interweaved together, completely turning into battle power to vent. The Shotian region lord and the others were also in a bad mood. Facing their own elders, this kind of feeling was too disappointing. Shotian region lord, give up struggling. If this continues, you will die without a doubt. From the very beginning, you have lost for sure. That's right, your current strength is far inferior to ours. As long as you're not blind, you can see it. I advise you to obediently give up struggling. This way, you still have a chance to live. Since we've been together for so many years, give up struggling. This is good for you. The true king is not you, but the evil spirit race. They had all been completely brainwashed. It should be said that they had already chosen to join the evil spirit race. Those who betrayed them did not join the evil spirit race, but they would follow the lead of the evil spirit race. To put it bluntly, it was a puppet force. However, they were willing to do so. They wanted to obtain more power and more opportunities. After encountering the evil spirit race, they hit it off and immediately knew what to do. Perhaps it could be said that a wise man submits to circumstances. The battle between the divine emperors would definitely descend again, so they had already chosen their side. It was impossible to persuade Domain Lord Shotian and the others to side with the evil spirit race. Since that was the case, they might as well betray him completely for his own sake. It was difficult for them to defeat the Shotian region lord, but it was only a matter of time. More than half of the elders and geniuses had betrayed them, and the other party had even sent reinforcements. How could they possibly win? Surrender. This was impossible. I'd rather drag all of you down with me than surrender. The Heaven Cultivation God Realm held a long sword in his hand and looked at them coldly, his killing intent surging. This is the dignity of the Heaven Cultivation God Realm. I would rather die standing than live kneeling. I would rather die standing than live kneeling. Everyone roared angrily, their morale soaring. Even if they were to die, they would fight with all their might. They were not willing to admit defeat. In a situation where they were outnumbered, their morale did not drop. Instead, it rose. With Region Lord Shotian leading the way, their morale naturally rose. They really overestimate themselves. Annihilate them. Avalon was extremely disdainful. Even if they fought back, they were nothing more than a bunch of trash. Following that, they continued to fight. However, after their morale soared, they could really fight back for a while. Even if they were outnumbered, they could still severely injure their opponents. If they could drag one down with them, they would drag one down with them. When their battle reached its climax, a terrifying power descended from the void and enveloped a group of cultivators. Destroy. Boom, boom, boom. Groups of cultivators directly exploded, turning into clouds of blood mist. They looked extremely miserable. These were all heavenly venerables or divine lords. All of them died, directly exploding into clouds of blood mist. As for those heavenly gods, they all felt immense pressure. They all raised their heads and looked up in shock. They discovered that 4 figures had descended in the void and were constantly forming hand seals to envelop the area, destroying a group of invaders. The Patriarch is here. The eyes of Shotian Region Lord and the others lit up. They had originally thought that this would be a battle to the death. Now that the Patriarch had appeared, they would definitely win this battle. There were no ancient heavenly gods among their opponents. At most, there was heavenly god Avalon. The rest could not be considered ancient heavenly gods. 4 ancient heavenly gods against 1 ancient heavenly god. The result could be imagined. How could this be? When heavenly god Avalon saw the 4 heavenly gods appear, his face darkened. Logically speaking, this should not have happened. There was a traitor among them. How could this still happen? Then he turned and ran, not even intending to stop. He directly abandoned his subordinates and the cultivators of the 2 great factions. He ran as soon as he said he would. There was no room for negotiation. Heavenly god Avalon was not a fool. When he saw the 4 patriarchs coming, there was no need to say anything. They would definitely lose. Unless they had ancient heavenly gods descend to fight against the 4 patriarchs. But they did not have that many ancient heavenly gods. Even if the ancient heavenly gods of the 2 great factions came, they would not be able to fight against them. There were too few of them. How could they compete? Generally speaking, ancient heavenly gods would stay in their own factions and rarely go out. Only in their own factions could they display their strongest strength. Therefore, they would not leave. The key was that they did not expect that there would be a flaw in their plan. How could they not win if they worked together? Unfortunately, Yi Tianyun ruined their plan. Heavenly god Torrent Cloud's plan to have a traitor fall through, and the 4 patriarchs were released. According to the normal plan, they would take over the entire Heaven Cultivation God realm and finally change owners. When the time came, they would cause some trouble, such as saying that Heaven Cultivation God Realm Lord was killed and another elder became the Heaven Cultivation God Realm Lord. In this way, the Heaven Cultivation God Realm would not only belong to them, but also to the 4 patriarchs. That guy still wants to escape. Heaven Cultivation God Realm Lord quickly chased after him. This time, he did not want Heavenly God Avalon to escape. He was already relieved. With the patriarchs here, there was no need to worry. From their horrified expressions, it was obvious what the result would be. Master, are you okay? Yi Tianyun floated over and landed next to the great Devas. The patriarchs were released because of you, right? The great Devas said with a smile. Is there a need to ask? It must be little junior brother's credit. Heavenly Paragon Sword Sai laughed loudly. Before coming, he asked us to save them. He must be saving them himself. Chapter 1576. The appearance of the 4 patriarchs immediately eased the burden on his heart. At least there was no danger. The 4 patriarchs joined forces to kill the evil spirit race and then capture the traitors. The traitors were not killed directly. Instead, they were captured first and then executed one by one in front of all the disciples. While they were killing the evil spirit race or the myriad heaven divine realm cultivators, Yi Tianyun also rushed over frantically. Under the lock of the 4 patriarchs, they could not escape and were trapped inside. In this way, It was like a cornered beast that could be easily killed. Especially under the suppression, their strength was greatly suppressed, and they basically had no power to resist. Yi Tianyun quickly activated all kinds of experience cards and followed up with a slaughter, which stunned the sword judge Heavenly Venerable and the others. Little junior brother is a belligerent. No, the myriad Heaven Divine Realm and the sacred Peak Divine Realm have always been against little junior brother. Little junior brother is venting. Haha, let's go and help. Let's get rid of all these guys. All of them thought that Yi Tianyun wanted revenge, and his real goal was to earn experience. With so many cultivators here, it was better to be killed by him than to be killed by the 4 patriarchs. This way, he could obtain experience, so he absolutely could not waste it. When the 4 patriarchs saw Yi Tianyun rush in, they were stunned. Generally speaking, it was enough for them to attack, and their killing speed was faster than Yi Tianyun's, so there was no need for them to join in. But since they had already entered, they could not attack Yi Tianyun, right? They could only slow down their killing speed. These experience points are all mine, all mine. Yi Tianyun swept all the way. He was not willing to let his experience points be stolen. He had originally come to earn experience points. If they were all taken away, then what was the point of coming here? Soon, as he swept through, a lot of experience points fell into his bag, and many Empyrean spirit treasures and the like dropped. These were all valuable things, so he naturally could not miss them. The more of these things, the better. In the future, they could be used to fuse and upgrade treasures, so they definitely couldn't be wasted. He saw his senior brothers helping to clean up the mess. They even shouted, "Little junior brother, I'm here to help you." This caused him to shake his head and smile bitterly. He couldn't wait to kill them all. With so many people joining in, how could he earn anything? Very quickly, the invaders were all cleaned up. The remaining ones were all traitors, and they were all captured. Even the elders were trapped in there. In the face of an ancestor-level existence, they did not have any strength to struggle at all and were easily captured. When a large group of traitors were captured, their faces were ashen. They all knew what the final outcome was, and that was death. Apart from that, there was no other choice. What the Heaven Cultivation God realm hated the most was betrayal. As long as it was a traitor, they would die without a doubt. Little junior brother, these 2 forces really provoked you, letting you kill so ruthlessly. Sword ruler Heavenly Venerable patted his chest and said, "But we also killed very ruthlessly, we helped you take revenge." Tears immediately streamed down Yi Tianyun's face. He could only nod to express his gratitude. In reality, he was very bitter in his heart. It was because of their participation that he earned a lot less experience. He couldn't say that he wanted to earn experience and let them kill for him, right? After stopping, they did not have the slightest bit of joy to speak of. All of them had stern faces. Facing so many traitors, even if they won, there was nothing to be happy about. They would only feel a kind of sorrow. Where's Ancestor Torrential Cloud? Heaven Cultivation Region Lord glanced and found that Heavenly God Torrential Cloud was not there, and felt very strange. Usually, 5 ancestors would appear at the same time, but there were only 4 ancestors now. Heavenly God Torrential Cloud is also a traitor. Heavenly God Yulang, who was in the lead, sighed deeply. Hearing such explosive news, all of them were stunned. Even the ancestors had traitors. What kind of demonic power was there to make them do such a rebellious thing? After finding out, they did not curse out loud. There was only a kind of sorrow in their hearts. Why did you do this? What conditions did the evil spirit race offer to make you do such a rebellious thing? Heavenly God Yulang turned to look at the traitorous elders. The battle of the God Emperors is about to begin. We are doing this for the good of the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm. If the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm wants to survive, we must submit to them. One of the elders said in a deep voice, however, the winner takes all. You can do whatever you want with us. We have nothing to say. The battle of the God Emperors is about to begin, the eyes of the ancestors focused. They were not surprised at all. The battle of the God Emperors would begin again sooner or later. As long as no God Emperors appeared, it would begin again. In particular, the main culprits of the battle of the God Emperors had not died yet. How could they give up? No one would give up, especially the heavenly gods who stood at the peak. The god emperors were their ultimate goal. In order to break through, they would sacrifice everything. Because becoming a god emperor was an invincible existence. It was said that they could control all life. Whoever they wanted to kill would die, and whoever they wanted to live would live. This meant that death in battle was not scary. As long as one became a god emperor, no matter how many casualties there were, they could be resurrected in the blink of an eye. No one knew whether it was so magical or not. They only knew that the peak cultivation here was the god emperor. In this celestial realm, there was only one god emperor. There would not be a second god emperor. This god emperor was the god who ruled over everything. Fan Yu, the true god emperors of the outer celestial realm and the inner celestial realm, were omnipotent. Yi Tianyun listened quietly at the side. He did not expect that this fierce battle was about to begin again. From the memories of the pile of statues, he had been there himself, and knew how terrifying the battle had been. It seemed that when the time came, people would be plunged into misery and suffering again, countless forces would be annihilated, and everything would be reduced to ruins. What a joke! I didn't expect that there would still be people who believed the lies from back then. Heavenly God Yapang said bitterly, back then, the evil spirit race also said the same thing to the other forces. What was the result in the end? They were either cannon fodder or killed by themselves. Everything was just a tool for them to kill people with a borrowed knife. Do you really expect them to give you anything? The ancestors had seen many things. These people did not know the situation at that time, but they still believed these evil spirit race. They were simply kicked in the head. No, this time they will really give us benefits. They will give us a chance to break through to the God Emperor realm. There is definitely not only one God Emperor, but many. Moreover, they can even break through to the 10th refinement of the Earth Monarch realm. As long as we control the heavenly cultivation celestial realm and become their force, they will teach us. These elders knew that they were doomed. They might as well confess everything so that they could know their good intentions. Chapter 1577. When Yi Tianyun heard the cultivation method of the 10 refinements Earthlord, his expression became extremely strange. Wasn't he himself a 10 refinements Earthlord? Was there a need to go through so much trouble to betray and obtain this cultivation method? Not to mention him, even Heavenly Lord Sword Sai and the others had strange expressions on their faces. They subconsciously looked at Yi Tianyun, feeling that this was an extremely laughable matter. So far, the first 10 refinement Earthlord that had appeared was undoubtedly Yi Tianyun. As for the evil spirit race, they did not believe that a 10 refinement Earthlord would appear. This was something that Yi Tianyun was certain of. Up until now, there definitely wasn't a 10th refinement Earth Monarch alive. Perhaps in the future, at least not now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such a special title. It was because he was the number 1 earthly monarch that he could have such a title. However, it was hard to say. The evil spirit race had the method to cultivate the 10 refinements of the Earth Lord. But so what? Yi Tianyun knew about it. If he went to negotiate with them, wouldn't he be able to make them betray him? Of course, they had an additional condition, and that was to break through to the God Emperor realm. The 10 refinements Earth Monarch cultivation method was merely something they wanted in passing. The method to break through to the God Emperor realm was the most important. Their words gave them a little shock. Could the explanation that had been spread throughout the entire divine realm be false? In other words, there could only be one God Emperor and not a second one. But the evil spirit race told them that a second one could appear. This was simply a joke. The evil spirit race, which had never even produced a single divine lord, actually dared to boast that they could produce a second divine lord. So what if that's the case? You're willing to betray your sect and deceive your master for such a small thing? The cultivation heaven domain lord said coldly, besides, do you really think they will give you the real cultivation method? You've all been elders here for so many years. Why are you regressing? The cultivation heaven domain lord was truly enraged. He had chosen to betray them just for such an insignificant matter. How laughable. Domain Lord Shotian, this is a matter of perspective. We don't regret our betrayal. As a member of this place, before you die, We will give you a little more information. The elder said in a serious tone, 2 divine lords have already appeared in the evil spirit race, it's just that they haven't come out of seclusion yet. Bulsh *T. Empyrean god Yudang couldn't help but curse, god emperors aren't easy to come by. There is only one god emperor in the world. If a god emperor really appeared, with their personalities, they would definitely come out to rule everything. This was obviously unbelievable. God emperors were already invincible existences, and there were 2 of them. Wasn't this a joke? Let's face it. We've all seen and felt it for ourselves. That terrifying aura is something that only a god emperor can possess. It's just that the god emperor didn't come out of seclusion. Instead, he's trapped. As for how he came out, we don't know. All we know is that his aura isn't something we can compare with. Do you really think that we're stupid? We haven't seen anything yet, so we've made up our minds. We're not that stupid. These elders snorted coldly. They looked like they were doing it for their own good, but they were heartlessly abandoned. It was truly chilling. For example, the existence that appeared earlier with the 10 refinements Earthlord was undoubtedly the work of the evil spirit race. They sent people out to stir up trouble, causing the entire divine realm to explode. You should have heard of this. These elders spoke with faces full of pride, wanting to say how correct their choice was. Even though they had been caught, they still wanted to say that their choice was the right one. At this point, the expressions of Yi Tianyun and the others became even weirder, especially Yi Tianyun, who was even more stunned. When did he become the evil spirit race's subordinate? It seems like the evil spirit race's scourge is not clear to all of you. The great Devas shook his head. Whether the matter regarding the Divine Lord is true or not, it's not easy for us to explain. But in the matter that followed, you were indeed fooled by the evil spirit race, and you were completely fooled. How is this possible? They can all release the aura of the 10 refinements Earthlord, and it feels very similar. As long as we obtain that cultivation method, a large number of experts will definitely appear in the heavenly cultivation divine realm. The 10 refinements Earthlord is the ultimate goal, and only then will it be easy to break through to the heavenly God realm, or even the divine Lord realm. They did not believe the words of the great Devas, and still firmly believed that what they had seen and heard was correct. That's right, from your tone, it seems like the great Devas knows a little more. If you have the ability, then tell me what the real cultivation method is, or how to prove that it is not a lie from the evil spirit race. These elders looked at the great Devas with sorrowful eyes and said, "Looks like you haven't made any progress even after training outside for so many years. It is because of this that we are unwilling to hand over the heavenly cultivation divine realm to you. But we hate it." In the end, we still lost. Their faces were filled with unwillingness. No matter what they said, they would not be able to escape death. There was no such thing as a good betrayal or a bad betrayal. Betrayal was betrayal, and the people here had almost been plunged into misery and suffering. Of course I have the cultivation method. The great Devas stood up, looked around, and said, "I'm not afraid to tell you that the cultivation method is to condense 2 planets before the 9 refinements Earthlord. Only then will you have the chance to break through to the 10 refinements Earthlord." Phut! They suddenly laughed out loud. As expected of an idiot. These are all nonsense spread by the evil spirit race to deceive you idiots and make you go berserk. I thought you would say something, but it turns out to be something that has been spread all over the streets. They spat and felt that the great Devas was even more ridiculous. The great Devas's expression was indifferent. He knew that they did not believe him. Just as he was about to say something, Yi Tianyun stood up and said, "I like to slap people in the face the most, and I like to slap them heavily." The group of people's gazes focused on Yi Tianyun, not knowing what he meant. When so many elders were talking, a junior actually stood up and interrupted them. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Tianyun directly unleashed the effect of the 10 refinements Earthlord. Chains appeared behind him, and there were a total of 10 chains, representing the 10 refinements Earthlord. The terrifying aura of the 10 refinements Earthlord enveloped them. Other than the great Devas and the others, most of them were stunned when they saw it. The 10 refinements Earthlord, it really was the 10 refinements Earthlord. What happened to the evil spirit race's exclusive? What happened to the people sent by the evil spirit race to cause trouble? The original was right in front of them, and he was even the direct disciple of the boundless deity. This was like seeing a ghost. Chapter 1578. Yi Tianyun's outburst made them dumbfounded, and they couldn't say a word. This wasn't just a slap in the face, it was simply a slap to the death, ruthlessly shattering their illusions. The real cultivation method is indeed to condense 2 planets before the 9th refinement Earthlord to successfully break through to the 10th refinement Earthlord. The difficulty is too high, it's not recommended to try. It doesn't mean that you can break through after condensing 2 planets, it just increases the chances a little. Yi Tianyun pointed at the great devas and said, I have already given the detailed experience to Master, everything will be decided by him. The great devas definitely wouldn't say it out loud. Originally, he wanted to refute a few words, but Yi Tianyun directly stood up and explained. Otherwise, they wouldn't be willing to believe it no matter what. At the same time, he wanted to increase the prestige of the great devas, so that after this stop, he could firmly take root in the heaven cultivation god realm. Previously, the great devas only wanted to try in the vast divine sect. Now that there was such a big change, once he could control most of the power in the heaven cultivation god realm, he could try here. He just wanted to be a boost here, not expose himself to prove that they were idiots. This was only one of the points, the key was to make his master's position more stable. Especially the last words, it meant that the detailed cultivation method was in the hands of the great devas, as to how to say it out, it was up to the great devas. The eyes of the group focused on the great devas, flickering incessantly. They didn't expect that the 10th refinement Earthlord powerhouse in the outside world was actually the disciple of the great devas, it was really inconceivable. How can that be? Could it be that what those guys provided us was fake? These elders were all stunned. They had personally experienced it, how could it be fake? As long as one is strong enough, and some have the ability to imitate, it's not surprising to be able to imitate the aura of the 10th refinement Earthlord. At this time, Yudang stepped out and shook his head, sighing, 10 refinements Earth monarchs. A long time ago, there were indeed 10 refinements Earth monarchs, but they all disappeared. We also have the ability to condense 2 planets, but we don't have the guts to break through to the 10th refinement. The cultivation method is too complicated, it's really hard to say. As ancient heavenly gods, they still knew quite a bit. However, in essence, they did not break through from the 10 refinements Earth monarch. Thus, they really did not have the true cultivation method or the reliable experience. Otherwise, they would have provided it long ago instead of being in seclusion. So there's such a thing, combined with Yi Tianyun's words, it seemed to be quite believable. Of course, the ability of the 10 refinements Earth monarch was right in front of their eyes. They had no choice but to believe it. Could it be that what we saw was an illusion? These elders really wanted to die. The real 10 refinement Earthlord was right in front of them. Without a doubt, the evil spirit race was just an illusion. That's right. What you've seen should be an illusion, including the power of the God Emperor. It's very likely that they found the power of the God Emperor from a long time ago and released a little bit, making you mistakenly think that it's true. Yudang snorted coldly. In our era, the God Emperor did not even appear. But now you're telling me that there are 2 God Emperors? Isn't this a joke? They haven't come out of seclusion yet. I think they don't exist at all. The strength of the God Emperor is so strong, what else can stop them? Yudang snorted disdainfully. He really did not believe these things. If there really was a God Emperor, wouldn't they turn the sky upside down? After hearing these words, the elders' faces alternated between green and white. Could it be that they were really fooled? Did they see it with their own eyes and feel the aura with their own eyes, or were they deceived? This was really too terrifying. The evil spirit race's methods were really strong. Could it be that we were really deceived? The traitorous elders were already regretting to the point that their intestines turned green. Yes, you must have been deceived. The great devas said in a deep voice. But they will definitely start a battle between the God Emperors. With their strength, they can still destroy us. The elders were still stubborn and did not completely compromise. Even if that's the case, do we have to kneel to them just to survive? Shoutian region lord sneered, Back then, during the battle between the god emperors, there were also many forces that were not willing to kneel to live. Take a closer look. How many forces that were willing to kneel to live still exist now? The words of Region Lord Shoutian and the others directly made the elders swallow back their words. Actually, these words were not only said to these traitors, but also to the nearby elders and deacons. They hoped that such a situation would not happen again. Traitors would never have a good ending. Yi Tianyun had a deep understanding of this in this aspect. The evil spirit race's attitude towards these traitors was extremely bad. Especially after the end, it was simply a completely different attitude. They were even more disdainful of these traitors, who were even worse than beasts. Thus, they would rather die standing than live kneeling. In 10 days, execute them in front of all the disciples. Shoutian Region Lord waved his hand, indicating for them to detain these people and execute them after a period of time. Yes. The guards immediately took them away. These elders' faces were ashen. What would come would come. This was the logic of the winner being the king and the loser being the bandit. It's all thanks to little friend's help that we were able to come out to rescue this time. Heavenly deity Yudong smiled at Yi Tianyun and said, I didn't expect you to be a 10 refinement Earth Lord. I really couldn't tell that such a genius is actually a human cultivator. It's really unbelievable. That's right. It seems like we should change the rules. Human cultivators will also be recruited, not only them, but even the other elders had also changed their views towards the human race. Especially those elders who insisted on recruiting genius disciples. Now, their views had also changed. It wasn't that recruiting geniuses was bad, but they were recruiting people with loyalty, not a bunch of ingrate. Now, many geniuses had betrayed them. Just thinking about it made their hearts ache. At the same time, they felt that they were all old and haggard. After such a thing happened, they were much less persistent in some of their pursuits. Great Elder, this time, we are all convinced. All the elders bowed deeply to the great Devas. Even if they were at the same level, they had to bow to express their apologies. After this experience, they had learned a lot. The more they climbed up from the bottom, or the more talented they were, the more talented they were. The more talented they were, even if they received resources as a reward, they would feel that it was only right. Where would they feel the slightest bit of gratitude? Chapter 1579. Yi Tianyun had indirectly saved the entire heaven cultivation sacred realm and received a lot of gratitude. He was even directly invited to become an elder. However, he rejected all of these. He still didn't want to become an elder here. The great Devas was enough to manage it. There was no need for him to join. Moreover, he definitely wouldn't do anything if he joined. He wasn't in charge of the 3 realms' sacred realm. Therefore, any position given to him was useless. Since he didn't want to be an elder, he could only be rewarded. Empyrean deity Yudong asked him to propose a reward. Yi Tianyun mentioned very bluntly that he needed all kinds of materials to refine a middle-grade heavenly venerate spiritual treasure. He could already refine a middle-grade heavenly venerate spiritual treasure now. One more treasure meant one more portion of strength. Empyrean deity Yudong naturally wouldn't be stingy. He directly gifted Yi Tianyun a large number of materials. Many of them were very good materials, enough for Yi Tianyun to refine a middle-grade heavenly venerate spiritual treasure. The rest of the matters basically had nothing to do with him. The heaven cultivation sacred realm wasn't his faction, and he wasn't an elder. Naturally, he could leave. However, he didn't choose to leave. Instead, he continued to stay here. He planned to refine a middle-grade heavenly venerate spiritual treasure first, then directly kill his way to the Myriad Sky Sacred Realm or the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm. He would ruthlessly plunder their headquarters. Even if he didn't go, the Heaven Cultivation Sacred Realm's patriarchs had already made up their minds. After this matter was over, they would directly send a large group of people over to flatten the 2 sacred realms. Since the 2 sacred realms were attacking, how could they not take revenge? Therefore, they decided to immediately organize a group of people to head over after things had stabilized. Yi Tianyun definitely wouldn't miss this opportunity. He would either head over alone or go with them. It was undoubtedly safer to go with them. After all, The two sacred realms had their own foundation. It would be easy for problems to arise if he went alone. Let's refine this treasure first. Otherwise, it'll really be troublesome. After this battle, especially when facing powerful sky gods, he basically had no power to resist. As a result, his explosive attacks couldn't reach the level that they should have. If he wanted to replace the set, he would have to increase his cultivation base first. Without reaching the heavenly god stage, he would not be able to replace the set. One had to admit that the requirements were really high. One had to be a heavenly god to be able to purchase a higher grade set. Now, he could only refine an Empyrean spirit treasure to defend himself. Otherwise, he would be insta-killed again. It looks like a middle-level Empyrean spirit treasure should be a defensive type. It has offensive capabilities, but its defensive capabilities are a bit weak. Yi Tianyun felt that he still had a long way to go. Just relying on his physique to resist the attack was too difficult. Thus, the second Empyrean spirit treasure was decided to be a defensive treasure. Immediately after, he began to throw the materials into his body and began to condense them. Some of the materials were not enough. They were simply too rare, and so there weren't many of them. Not even Empyrean god Edang had so many of them. Therefore, he could only throw it into the shop and sell it. Then, through the effect of duplication, he could make several copies of the materials. It was just that the price was shocking. However, no matter how shocking it was, he could only brace himself and buy it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to refine good defensive equipment. It's about time. All that's left is a bit of time. Condensing a middle-level Empyrean spirit treasure was the same as condensing a lower-level Empyrean spirit treasure. He just needed to throw in all the materials and the condensation would be successful. This was simply a blessing for those with bad hands. There was no need to invite a grandmaster. He could just refine it himself. After a period of condensation, the middle-level Empyrean spirit treasure quickly took shape. Then, two treasures were condensed. Gradually, as time passed, the patterns on the surface became clearer. Finally, what appeared in front of Yi Tianyun were two wrist guard. The second Empyrean spirit treasure was a pair of wrist guards. They were things that were securely wrapped around the wrist. Because he was condensing two items, he consumed quite a bit of materials. Success. After the condensation was successful, Yi Tianyun took it out and wore it on his wrist. There were still 5 faint dragons writhing on it. It was similar to his 5-dragon divine spear, possessing an extremely domineering power. This wrist guard didn't look too eye-catching. Who would have thought that it was a middle-level Empyrean spirit treasure? Now, I have a defensive treasure. I can test its power next time. Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed. This thing wasn't as ordinary as it looked on the surface. The effects it possessed were extremely different. Then I'll call it the 5-dragon wrist guards. He wanted to create a kind of set, the kind whose effects could be superimposed. It's about time. I wonder what's going on in the heaven cultivation god realm. Yi Tianyun waved his hand. After feeling that it was about time, he went out of seclusion. The guards outside greeted him respectfully. Yi Tianyun was the great benefactor of the heaven cultivation god realm. Seeing him was like seeing the great elder. They were very respectful. After coming out, he quickly learned that the heaven cultivation god realm had announced the general situation and executed the traitors in front of all the disciples. This was no different from what was said before. As for when to attack the sacred peak divine realm and the myriad heaven divine realm, it was basically decided to be next month. This operation was really swift and decisive. They immediately started preparing. The impact of this matter was too great. The heaven cultivation god realm had to do something to save their face. Destroying the 2 divine realms was the best way, and it was also a warning to the evil spirit race. Next month, we will attack the myriad heaven divine realm and the sacred peak divine realm. We plan to attack the sacred peak divine realm first. Among them, the sacred peak divine realm has the best relationship with the evil spirit race, so we will destroy the sacred peak divine realm first. The heaven cultivation domain lord said in the great hall. During the process, it is very likely that the evil spirit race will come to help, so the ones who go this time must be powerful, all of them above the Sky Sovereign realm. Now, start arranging the teams. You must listen to the captain's orders and not disobey. After making some simple arrangements, they began to gather the Sky Sovereigns so that they could be arranged into small teams. The Sacred Peak Divine Realm was so vast, so a group of people would definitely be very slow. What they needed was an all-out assault. Domain Lord Shoutian, I wonder if I can participate in this battle? At this time, Yi Tianyun's figure appeared in front of everyone. He would not miss this kind of battle. After all, he had always had a bit of enmity with the Sacred Peak Divine Realm. No problem, then you can join a small team. As for who to let follow you, Domain Lord Shoutian, I'm willing to join his team. I'm willing too. I'm more willing. Empyrean Heavenly Cloud, my ability is not weak, I will definitely not drag you down. One by one, they pounced forward as if they were snatching people, wanting to snatch Yi Tianyun away. Chapter 1580. Yi Tianyun's popularity was very high. A group of people kept surging over, fighting to join Yi Tianyun's team. Originally, Yi Tianyun and the others were quite ostracized here. After all, they had come over to slap their faces and affect their rules. It was different now. Yi Tianyun had super strength, super standard, and had even saved the cultivation heaven divine realm. His popularity was basically equivalent to the Grand Elder's level. Therefore, how could they not want to join? They wanted to feel what it was like to have a 10 refinement Earth Lord Foundation heavenly venerables up close. Yi Tianyun took a casual glance and said with a smile, everyone is very outstanding and powerful, but my team can only have 5 people. I can't accept too many people for the time being. However, these 5 people have already been decided. That's right. At this time, Heavenly Venerable Sword Sai and the others came out and smiled as they came to Yi Tianyun's side. Heavenly Venerable Sword Sai, Heavenly Venerable Dragon Cry, Heavenly Venerable Yu Qian, Heavenly Venerable Li, and finally Yi Tianyun. The entire team was full, and there were no more empty spots. From the beginning, they had planned to be a team, so there were no more empty spots to speak of. All right. They immediately revealed disappointed expressions. They had originally wanted to fight alongside Yi Tianyun, but now it seemed like they could only watch from afar. Although it was a pity, they could at least watch from afar. Soon, all the teams were allocated. The great Devas stood out and said coldly, all the teams are here now. We will set off for the Sacred Peak Divine Realm later. We will not attack the Sacred Peak Divine Realm indiscriminately. As long as they are above the Divine Lord level, we will kill them all. Some things should be baptized with blood. They would not bully those with low cultivation. Especially those old, young, sick, and disabled, they would not attack them indiscriminately. They were not like the evil spirit race, nor were they like other vicious forces. They would still let those who should be let go. After all, the real culprit was not them. Some of them did not even know and directly let them go. Baptize with blood. Baptize with blood. Thinking back to how sullen they had felt earlier, how all of their disciples had been threatened. As long as the order was given, they would all be annihilated. One could well imagine how they felt. As an accomplice, the Sacred Peak Celestial Realm was naturally going to be annihilated. With their morale boosted, the great Devas led them directly to the Sacred Peak God territory. Accompanying them were the 2 patriarchs. The rest of the old ancestors were all here. If all the experts left, there would be no one guarding this place. This was a rather dangerous matter. If an enemy attacked, it would be troublesome. Soon, they charged toward the Sacred Peak's God Realm. When they arrived at the Sacred Peak God Realm and were about to start a massacre, they were all stunned. Picking a random planet, one would see a tragic scene. All the cultivators, regardless of their cultivation level or age, had been annihilated. Some of them died miserably, some were split into pieces, and some were riddled with countless holes. When they saw this, they were all shocked by this scene. Yi Tianyun quickly flew down to check. After a while, he said with a serious expression, "It's the evil spirit race, evil spirit race?" They quickly reacted. Among them, Heavenly Venerable Gen Sai said in a deep voice, "Could it be that the failure of the Sacred Peak God Realm angered the evil spirit race and caused a complete purge? That's very possible. Maybe they're still here to purge. Yi Tianyun's gaze was ice-cold. He turned to look at the great devas and said, "Master, what should we do now?" "Destroy them." The great devas said coldly, "Everyone, listen up. Speed up and spread out in all directions. Kill the evil spirit race if you see them. If anything happens, immediately request reinforcements. Be careful." They did not expect the evil spirit race to be so ruthless. Their attack failed and they were wiped out by the evil spirit race instead. They did not even need to do anything, and the sacred peak god realm would disappear from this god realm forever. However, they did not want the evil spirit race to help them with this. They had to get rid of them first. "Yes, Grand Elder." Following that, they spread out in all directions. Yi Tianyun's team also rushed forward to see if they could find the evil spirit race. These evil spirit race are really ruthless. Are they not showing mercy to the losers? Yi Tianyun's gaze was ice-cold. The evil spirit race had always been high and mighty, and they were all extremely proud existences. Therefore, during the Great War back then, the divine spirit race had crazily eradicated them. They never thought that they would be so tenacious and not be exterminated. On the contrary, the divine spirit race was in a miserable state and had now fallen into a state of decline. Perhaps there were still some divine spirit race hiding in a corner, but no matter what, the decline of the divine spirit race was inevitable. Along the way, Yi Tianyun saw that the planets had been completely drained. Many cultivators had been killed and devoured by the evil spirit race. This feeling was truly disgusting. The existence of the evil spirit race was hundreds of times more disgusting than some of the demon race. After flying past quite a few planets, they finally saw living people in front of them. However, under the slaughter of the evil spirit race, the number of living people quickly decreased. There were not many evil spirit races in this group, only a few dozen of them. Their cultivation levels varied, the highest was only at the Divine Lord level, and the lowest was even at the Star Lord level. It was as if they were here to devour for cultivation, but now, it didn't look like they were devouring for cultivation at all. They were more like playing around. "Ha ha ha, you want to escape? Obediently come over here. Run, keep running. I like to see your expressions of despair when you run away. Weren't you quite arrogant just now? Now, I'll kill all your loved ones one by one. Let's see how you can still be so arrogant." These evil spirit races were simply perverts, they were simply abusing them. When Yi Tianyun and the others saw this, they were enraged and flew over without any hesitation. "Kill." Yi Tianyun turned into a ray of light and descended. Those evil spirit races did not even have the time to react and were directly blasted into smithereens. "All of you must die." Yi Tianyun swept out once again, turning all the evil spirit races into smithereens. Perhaps he did not have a good impression of the sacred peak divine realm, but to trample on life like this was absolutely disgusting. Even if he died, he had to die with some respect. But they were just playing around with him. If he lost, he would accept it even if he was killed. However, casually playing with them was even more so trampling on their dignity. This was something that no cultivator would allow. This was the same logic as when the heavenly cultivation divine realm charged in, they would only kill those at the divine lord level and above. They disdained killing cultivators with low cultivation levels. Everyone had their own standards. Chapter 1581. Amongst so many races, the evil spirit race was shouted at by everyone and was not allowed to exist. When the other divine realms fought, they would not kill all of them. They would only kill some of the upper echelons. As for those at the bottom, most of them were innocent. Most of them were just seeking stability, so there wouldn't be any problems. However, the evil spirit race was different. Those who failed were all executed, those who were not of their race were also exterminated, or those who were not allies, they were completely wiped out, leaving not a single one alive. It was precisely because of this that all the powers hated the evil spirit race so much. However, the evil spirit race was like those weeds. They grew again in the spring breeze and quickly recovered. It was impossible to burn them all. Very quickly, they completely exterminated these evil spirit races and quickly flew to other planets to exterminate the other evil spirit races. Thank you, benefactor. Thank you, benefactor. They all knelt down and kowtowed to Yi Tianyun and the others. They did not know Yi Tianyun, nor did they know why they were here. All they needed to know was that they had been saved, and that was enough. As they continued to advance, they saw more and more evil spirit races scattered across the surrounding planets, continuously carrying out indiscriminate slaughter. As long as it was a life, they would not let it go. Perhaps in their eyes, other than themselves, everyone else was food. But even food had its own dignity, thus, they all started to resist. Those who could not resist could only choose to flee in all directions and hide. However, all of this was meaningless. They would all be easily found and could not be avoided. Yi Tianyun swept through them once again and cleaned them up. The group of cultivators all knelt down and kowtowed to them in thanks. Originally, they should have been hated by the sacred peak divine realm, but now, they had become their saviors. It wasn't just them, the other teams were the same. They all rushed over to exterminate groups of evil spirit races, but because their cultivations weren't high, they were all easily exterminated. Originally, even if all the experts of the sacred peak divine realm attacked, in addition to the side that was originally dealing with Yi Tianyun, quite a few of them had already been annihilated. Right now, there were only a small number of experts left in the sacred peak divine realm, so they were isolated and helpless. Under the annihilation of the evil spirit race, they didn't even have the chance to resist. This verified domain Lord Shoutian's words. When there was value, the forces that relied on the evil spirit race could still survive and get a mouthful of soup. If they couldn't complete the mission, or if they were of no value, the result would be complete annihilation. They had seen this kind of situation many times, but there were still people who believed that this kind of misfortune would not befall them. But when the real disaster came, it was already too late for regrets. As they approached the center of the sacred peak celestial territory, they discovered that the main hall had been destroyed. There were corpses everywhere. As for where the sacred peak region lord had gone, they had no idea. At the very least, they knew that the sacred peak celestial realm was finished. The sacred peak region lord had escaped, and the patriarch of the sacred peak celestial realm was nowhere to be found. The rest were all disciples with ordinary cultivation, and they were slowly cleaned up by the evil spirit race. Fortunately, Yi Tianyun and the others arrived just in time and suppressed the situation. There aren't any powerful evil spirit races, they are all a bunch of small fry. The great Devas and the others gathered back together. They thought that they would be able to catch a stronger evil spirit race, but who knew that they were all small fries? It's the same for us, it's all a bunch of small fries. It's the same for us. The teams gathered back one by one, and the reports they gave were all the same. There were no powerful existences. Whether it was the evil spirit race, the region lord of the sacred peak celestial realm, or the sky sovereign, none of them were here. Where are the sacred peak region lord and the others? Why aren't they here? Sky Sovereign Gen Sai and the others felt that this was the most strange. They definitely wouldn't send all of them out. The Sacred Peak Region Lord and the others would definitely stay here to guard. Now, they were all gone. Not a single one of them could be seen. If they were here, the evil spirit race would definitely not be so impudent. I guess they must have truly joined the evil spirit race's side. Yi Tianyun slowly raised his head and said, if they really joined the evil spirit race's side, could it be that they went to the evil spirit race's area? The eyes of Sky Sovereign Gen Sai and the others were filled with shock. They abandoned their own forces and so many subordinates just like that. I think that should be the case. Yi Tianyun shook his head. To some of the higher-ups, these were like ants. So what if they casually threw them away? They no longer had any value. After abandoning them, they were casually harvested by the evil spirit race, just like livestock that could be slaughtered at will. What was sad was that they had followed some heartless domain lords. They thought that they would have a good life, but now, it seemed that there was only a tragic ending. That's about it. This place has already been completely abandoned by them. They must have known that we would come back to attack, so they simply gave up and allowed the evil spirit race to do as they pleased. The great Devas shook his head. Based on this situation, I reckon that the myriad heaven divine realm is not much better off. If we go over now, we might be able to save some cultivators. Alright, let's go now. In their opinion, the myriad heaven divine realm might also be suffering from this kind of devouring. However, just as they were about to leave, Yi Tianyun suddenly extended his hand to stop them, signaling them to stop. Wait. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed, and he said in a deep voice, "Do you think it's possible for them to go back and launch a sneak attack on the cultivation heaven divine realm? This. But even our ancestor has come out, how dare they act so recklessly?" The great Devas and the others narrowed their eyes. But if that was really the case, it would be really troublesome. The ancestors have come out, but only 2 of them. What if they all move out, including the 2 great ancestors of the sacred peak divine realm and the myriad heaven divine realm? In addition to the experts of the evil spirit race, or the ancestors of the cultivation heaven divine realm? Yi Tianyun said a long string of things, causing them to be dumbfounded. Previously, he had thought that the other party had already been defeated and would definitely not attack again. Now that he thought about it carefully, it was really possible that it would turn into a general attack. Taking advantage of the fact that a large number of experts had come out, they would circle around and attack fiercely, completely taking over the cultivation heaven divine realm. Just as they were worrying, the great Devas's expression changed. He took out a few jade pendants from his bosom, all of them broken, and not a single one of them was intact. "They're really here." The faces of the great Devas and the others darkened. Whatever they were worried about, it would happen immediately. These fellows had already predicted that the cultivation heaven divine realm would come to take revenge, so they gave up on this place and turned towards the general attack, wanting to completely devour the cultivation heaven divine realm. Chapter 1582. The great Devas and the others immediately turned around and prepared to rush back to the heaven cultivation god realm at their fastest speed. However, even if they rushed back at their fastest speed, it would still take a long time. By the time they got back, they did not know what the situation was like over there. Thus, they immediately boarded the spirit boat and flew towards the heaven cultivation god realm at their fastest speed. "Master, please wait a moment." Yi Tianyun indicated for them not to be in such a hurry. "What is it?" The great Devas stopped and asked doubtfully. "Everyone, please come in here. I will bring you back. I have a shuttle-type treasure that can only be used a few times. It can return to the heaven cultivation god realm at an extremely fast speed," Yi Tianyun said in a deep voice. He could only say that it was a shuttle-type treasure. He couldn't possibly say that he could easily return after setting up the coordinates, right? Wouldn't that be scaring them to death? There's such a treasure. And it can only be used a few times. The great Devas frowned and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you. After this matter is over, I will compensate you properly." There was no time to lose. Even if it was a waste, they could only accept it. They weren't being lured away from the mountain, but they had set a trap for themselves. The other party had completely calculated it, and had gone along with it to launch a sneak attack. At the same time, he had arranged for some evil spirit race to cause damage and attract their attention. Now, he had saved the sacred peak god realm, but his own home was going to be destroyed. There's no need to talk about this now. Yi Tianyun summoned the myriad divine pagoda and gestured for them to come in. Without hesitation, they all entered. They trusted Yi Tianyun very much, so they naturally did not have any suspicions. After entering, Yi Tianyun immediately set the coordinates, and with a flash, he disappeared. In the periphery of the heaven cultivation god realm, a group of powerful Empyrean gods were continuously attacking the sealed passageway. The ones who were working the hardest were the domain lord of the sacred peak and the domain lord of the myriad heaven. Other than wanting to contribute, they also wanted to vent their anger. Their own power was gone, how could they not be angry? "It's all your fault. If it wasn't for you, how could my power be gone? Damn it, it's all gone. My forces are also gone, all of them have been offered up. If I don't flatten all of you this time, I won't be the domain master of the myriad heaven divine realm." They were extremely crazy, attacking this side fiercely. Apart from them, the other heavenly deities were also like this. Who would be happy when their own forces were gone? In addition to all the Empyrean gods from the 2 great powers, there were also Empyrean gods from the evil spirit race. In total, there were more than 20 Empyrean gods. They were all extremely powerful and not ordinary Empyrean gods. Under the violent bombardment, the originally closed passageway was about to be blasted open. Closing the passageway was only equivalent to closing the door. If it continued to be bombarded, it would definitely be blasted open. When they come back, they will only see a pile of corpses. That will be the best feeling. The sacred peak domain master's eyes were red, and his attacks became more and more intense. From their point of view, it was Xiu Tian's god realm that caused them to end up in such a state. Not only were their forces gone, but their main mission was to take down the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm and flatten it. If they couldn't complete this mission, then it would be their turn to be finished. If their own forces were destroyed, they could rebuild them, but if they were destroyed, then what was the point? The key was that they were blaming the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm for everything, instead of finding fault with themselves. The Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm and the others inside the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm all wore grave expressions. In order to exterminate them, they had sent out about half of their powerful cultivators, leaving the other half. Most importantly, they had already lost a lot of people. Even if only half of them remained, it would still be very difficult to resist. Even if the patriarchs came out, they had to be cautious. After all, the other side also had a patriarch, and there was also an old acquaintance outside Empyrean god Torrential Cloud. Empyrean god Torrential Clouds organized the other Empyrean gods to launch a ferocious assault on the passageway. Empyrean god Torrential Clouds was the patriarch of this place, so he was very familiar with the defenses here. Thus, they were attacking the weak points of this place. Judging from the current situation, it wouldn't be long before their defenses completely crumbled. Empyrean god Torrential Clouds, I didn't think you would become their accomplice. Have you completely forgotten about our old friendship? Empyrean god Yulong roared. Old friendship. Open your eyes and see who I am. Empyrean god Torrential Clouds chuckled coldly as 4 wings suddenly sprouted from his back. He was a member of the evil spirit tribe. All of them were completely dumbstruck. Who would have thought that the comrade they had spent so much time with would be a member of the evil spirit tribe? This was how the evil spirit tribe was. No matter how much they nurtured them, they would never grow close to them. Regardless of whether they had saved their comrade or not, none of it mattered. This was the best proof of that. They had nurtured them for so many years for nothing, only to be stabbed in the back. Who would have thought that you would be a member of the evil spirit tribe? Empyrean god Yulong and the others wore dark expressions. They really couldn't tell that Empyrean god Torrential Clouds was a member of the evil spirit tribe. They had no idea how he was able to conceal his aura so perfectly that they were unable to detect him. That's right, I am a member of the evil spirit tribe. Empyrean god Torrential Clouds chuckled coldly. If you really want to remember our past friendship, then surrender and sign a slave contract. I'll spare you and even nurture you well. Of course, you have to hand over that treasure of yours as well. Empyrean god Yulong has been holding onto it for so long, it's time for you to hand it over. That treasure. Empyrean god Yulong's expression darkened as a smile of rage appeared on his face. So you've been eyeing that treasure from the very beginning. Let me tell you, it's something that will never happen. I knew it would never happen. Aside from you, no one has been willing to hand it over to you this entire time. Seeing as that's the case, I can only take it from you. Don't say that I don't care about our past friendship then. Empyrean god Torrential Clouds splayed his hands open with a smile. Look at all the powerful beings on my side. Do you really think you can still resist after all these setbacks? I have to say, you really are stupid. Do you really think that we won't dare to launch a sneak attack? You even sent out so many powerful beings. By the time they come back, all they'll see will be a pile of corpses. Empyrean god Torrential Clouds' eyes were filled with disdain. However, it's exactly because of your stupidity that we've been forced to plan ahead. Could it be that our Heaven Cultivation God realm is truly doomed this time? They had just endured a life-or-death tribulation, and now they were facing another one. It could only be said that their boldness had far exceeded the imagination of the Heaven Cultivation God realm leaders. Chapter 1583. Yi Tianyun's sudden appearance immediately attracted the attention of many cultivators, and all of them turned to look in his direction. However, when they noticed that he was an intermediate-level heavenly venerate, they ignored him, thinking that he was just a passerby. Realm Lord Shoutian and the others were stunned upon seeing Yi Tianyun's return. Why had Yi Tianyun suddenly returned? Where did this brat come from? He must be tired of living. An upper-level celestial master on the side pressed his finger and quickly flew over, wanting to kill Yi Tianyun. In this area, Yi Tianyun was the only outsider. Everyone else was on their side, so they naturally had to come and take care of him. Heavenly God Sky Cloud also noticed Yi Tianyun, and his pupils contracted as he roared, "This is the brat who ruined our plan. Hand him over to me." Heavenly God Sky Cloud immediately recognized Yi Tianyun as the brat who had ruined their plan, and he immediately turned to attack Yi Tianyun in an attempt to kill her. If it weren't for Yi Tianyun, how would their plan have turned out like this? This was all Yi Tianyun's fault. As such, he was going to kill Yi Tianyun even if he had to swallow his pride. In particular, Yi Tianyun was not as simple as they had imagined. He was a very troublesome brat. All of the heavenly venerates were dumbstruck. An intermediate-level heavenly venerate was asking an ancient heavenly god to intervene. Just what had this brat done to incur heavenly god Sky Cloud's wrath? Realm Lord Shoutian and the others' expressions shifted. They were unable to provide reinforcements, and heavenly god Edang's heart tightened. Yi Tianyun had helped them, so he was still the benefactor of the heavenly cultivation god realm. If he were to die like this, how would the heavenly cultivation god realm maintain their dignity? A faint smile appeared on Yi Tianyun's face as he looked at the oncoming heavenly god Sky Cloud. He waved a hand, and the myriad god pagoda flew out. As it grew bigger, a bunch of cultivators rushed out, including the other two patriarchs. As soon as they came out, they immediately formed a circle in front of Yi Tianyun and prepared for battle. How can this be? The appearance of the great Devas gave heavenly god Torrential Cloud a fright, and he immediately stopped in his tracks. After all, there were two great ancestors here, and their strength was comparable to his. If they really fought, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. The other Empyrean deities were all shocked. The Sacred Peak Region Master and the others all stopped their attacks and looked over in a daze. Didn't they say that it would take a long time for them to return here? It might not take too long, but it would take at least a few days or even a week. After all, the distance between the two of them was quite far. Who would have thought that they would already be back when they had just started? Furthermore, they were brought back by a mysterious kid. This treasure is really amazing. I really came back in an instant. How could the vast heavenly deity and the others not be shocked? Such a shocking speed caused them to be stupefied. Even if they activated their spirit ships at full power, they wouldn't be able to do this. It would take at least a few days, and by the time they got back, the battle would most likely have already begun or ended. Now that they had come back in an instant, they didn't even have time to warm up before returning to the Heaven Cultivation God realm. This type of shuttle-type treasure was definitely an extremely rare type. It was definitely a life-saving treasure. After coming out, they didn't pounce forward. After all, they had brought a lot of cultivators with them, and they were more powerful than all of them. If they hadn't made it back in time, they would have been far more powerful than the cultivators in the Heaven Cultivation God realm. The current situation was that they had surrounded Empyrean God Tower Cloud and the others in a circle. What's going on? They can come back so quickly? Aren't they already wreaking havoc on the Sacred Peak region? Heavenly God Torrential Cloud and the others wore dark expressions. They had thought that they would be able to take down the Sacred Peak region easily, but it didn't look like it would be that easy. Even though they had many patriarchs on their side, the Sacred Peak Patriarch, the Myriad Heaven Patriarch, and Patriarch Torrential Cloud made up 3 patriarchs. As for the Evil Spirit Tribe, they didn't have any patriarchs. Only a few heavenly gods had come to reinforce them. The Evil Spirit Tribe's patriarchs definitely couldn't be mobilized unless it was absolutely necessary. However, even though Heavenly God Torrential Cloud was an Evil Spirit Tribe patriarch, it was already very impressive that one of them had been mobilized. If many patriarchs were to appear, it would be very troublesome. This would attract the attention of some of the ancient B** stards, and they would all wake up. The Evil Spirit Tribe was wreaking havoc in the surrounding divine realms, But those ancient B***stards hadn't come out because the situation wasn't serious enough. Unless the situation was extremely serious, they wouldn't come out. It's all his fault. Heavenly God Torrential Cloud focused his gaze on Yi Tianyun again. Yi Tianyun had appeared out of thin air before bringing a large group of people with him. It was undoubtedly his appearance that had disrupted their plans. Could it be that you're a disciple of the Fector realm? Heavenly God Torrential Cloud stared intently at Yi Tianyun, trying to glean something from his eyes. A disciple of the Fector realm? Yi Tianyun shrugged. I don't even know what you're talking about. The Fector realm was an extremely mysterious divine realm that was almost impossible to find. It was almost as if it didn't exist in this world. However, it did exist in this world, and it possessed extremely intricate treasures that could unleash astonishing power. In reality, it was the equivalent of a super powerful divine craftsman who could create many intricate treasures. For example, there really were treasures that could allow one to instantly pass through several divine realms. However, no one had ever been to the Fector realm, and no one knew where it was. There were still treasures from the Fector realm on the market, and all of them were extremely dazzling, causing people to fight over them. Now that Yi Tianyun had displayed such bizarre methods, they couldn't help but wonder if Yi Tianyun was actually from the Fector realm. However, it was true that Yi Tianyun wasn't from the Fector realm. He knew about the Fector realm, but he wasn't a disciple of the Fector realm. How could little junior brother be a disciple of the Fector realm? Heavenly Sovereign Sword Ruler and the others all laughed. They had accompanied him all the way here from the outer divine realms. The disciples of the Fector realm were extremely precious. How could they have come from the outer divine realms? The disciples of the Fector realm were all super geniuses. There was no need for them to play around like this. Moreover, the disciples of the Fector realm were extremely strict. They couldn't leave the Fector realm as they pleased. Unless they were given special permission, they were not allowed to leave. If they left without permission, they would be severely punished. He's not a disciple of the Fector realm? Heavenly God Torrential Cloud's eyes were cold. Then you have a treasure from the Fector realm. What a miscalculation. You're the one who ruined both of our plans. Damn you. Chapter 1584. Yi Tianyun had foiled his plans twice in a row. How could he not be enraged? Even though there was a massive disparity in their cultivation bases, Heavenly God Sky Cloud was going to kill him even if he had to throw away his pride. Do you think I'd help you if I didn't foil your plans? Idiot. Yi Tianyun said sarcastically. He didn't put Heavenly God Dao Yun in his eyes at all. Heavenly God Sky Cloud flared up with rage, and he pointed a finger toward them. Kill those bastards over there first. I'll take care of this evil brat. Heavenly God Sky Cloud had really swallowed his pride. He was telling everyone that he was going to kill Yi Tianyun first in front of so many cultivators. This was simply inconceivable. A high and mighty ancient heavenly god was swallowing his pride to attack an intermediate heavenly venerate. It was shameful to say that he had lowered himself like this. Heavenly God Sky Cloud didn't feel humiliated. Instead, he was enraged, and he wanted to kill Yi Tianyun. How could he not be enraged after spoiling two of his plans? All of his plans had been so perfect, but they had all been ruined. He could have taken down the cultivation god realm without expending a single soldier. Not only had he suffered countless casualties, but even the two puppet god realms had been completely destroyed. This was a chain reaction that made him want to vomit blood. Thank God he hadn't alerted those old B***stards. Otherwise, the problem would have been even more severe. Heavenly God Sky Cloud, if you want to touch him, you'll have to ask the two of us first. The two patriarchs positioned themselves in front of Heavenly God Sky Cloud. If they were going to settle scores, then they were going to settle scores with one another. Piss off. Heavenly God Sky Cloud quickly summoned his heavenly venerate spirit treasures, including the heavenly god spirit treasures. 5 spirit treasures appeared around him. At the same time, 5 arms appeared on his back, each of which was wielding a weapon. He was truly going to fight for his life. Evil spirit tribe cultivators had multiple arms, which meant that they could unleash even more power. Boom. The battle was about to commence, and Heavenly God Sky Cloud's charge officially commenced. Following the other heavenly deities, they all attacked together. When facing enemies, their eyes were definitely bloodshot. The Holy Peak Realm leader and the others also charged forward. Seeing as they couldn't open the passageway right away, they had to kill the great Devas and the others first. Open the passage. Empyrean god Yudang and the others immediately gave the order to open up the passageway. Previously, the disparity in power had been too great. They wanted to first observe the situation before making any further plans. Now that everyone was back, it was time to have a good fight. Heavenly god Yudang took the initiative to open up a passageway, and all of them quickly charged out with Heavenly god Yudang at the lead. This time, the battle really began. Everyone brandished their weapons and attacked fiercely. The battle quickly became white-hot. Open. At that moment, a huge divine tree descended from the void. A vast life force descended in all directions, enveloping all the cultivators. At this time, they were surprised to find that their healing abilities had greatly improved. Without a doubt, this was the Yi Tianyun Voodoo Wood Divine set. The effects would decrease as one's cultivation increased, but it was still quite effective for heavenly deities, so it was better than having no effect at all. Of course, as Yi Tianyun's cultivation increased, the effects would also increase. Therefore, it could be maintained at a very good level. This way, it would have a strong healing effect on all cultivators. Not only did Yi Tianyun activate super strong healing, but he also constantly rushed toward other Empyrean powerhouses. He might not be able to kill heavenly deities, but killing those Empyreans was not a problem. This healing ability is really amazing. What kind of move is this? Empyrean Skycloud is too amazing. He has this kind of ability. The injuries he just suffered recovered immediately. It's several times faster than before. It's really amazing. We don't have to worry about getting injured when we fight with them. Even if we get injured, we'll be fine after a little rest. When they sensed this power, they were all astonished. Even the elders were extremely shocked. Empyrean Swordsea and the others had already felt it. When they saw their expressions, they thought of their own expressions. They were indeed deeply shocked. Ding successfully killed an upper-level Empyrean. Obtained experience. Ding successfully killed a middle-level Empyrean. Obtained experience. Ding successfully killed a. Under the blessing, they became braver and braver as they fought. They were not afraid of getting injured, so they could naturally crush them with irresistible force. At the same time, with the help, Yi Tianyun could also obtain a shocking amount of experience. He didn't even need to do anything to earn a large amount of experience. He had wanted to do this before, but the range was limited. If he hunted them from all directions, his healing range would not be able to reach them. Therefore, he decided not to activate it and could only slowly do it himself. Now, it was different. They were all gathered together and fighting, so everything was within his range of control. Under such circumstances, his experience was rapidly increasing, and it was no longer a dream to level up quickly. Kill. Yi Tianyun's speed skyrocketed. The astonishing speed of the Kuan-Peng bloodline was unleashed here. Killing Empyreans was as easy as drinking water. Suddenly, he was like a harvester, harvesting everything in his path. This situation scared Empyrean god Torrential Clouds and the others. He had this kind of ability. This brat is really strange. Kill him first. The Sacred Peak Region Master and the others all agreed with Empyrean god Torrential Cloud's words. This was really too strange. Not only did he ruin their plans, but he was also using such a strange technique in battle. They had seen people who could heal injuries, but they had never seen someone who could heal such a large area. They couldn't even hold their own against him. Even if they kept taking pills, they wouldn't be able to keep up with his healing. As soon as the order was given, several heavenly gods quickly surrounded Yi Tianyun. One by one, they burst out their strongest power and rushed towards Yi Tianyun. They had to kill Yi Tianyun first no matter what. They could put Shoutian Region Master and the others aside and focus on killing Yi Tianyun first. If you want to kill him, you'll have to ask us first. The great Devas and the others quickly intercepted them and engaged in a fierce battle with these heavenly gods. They had to protect Yi Tianyun no matter what. Regardless of whether it was when they had saved the Shotian god realm or now that they were in an extremely important position, they had to prioritize Yi Tianyun. There was a significant difference in overall strength between the two sides. With Yi Tianyun's powerful healing, they might be able to win this battle, and they might even suffer very few losses. As such, they had to protect Yi Tianyun no matter what. For a time, it could be said that Yi Tianyun was protected inside and out. As the healer, he continuously cast healing techniques from the center, allowing them to heal quickly. This voodoo wood divine set is really good stuff. If I can continue to upgrade it, wouldn't it be heaven-defying? Yi Tianyun would use this voodoo wood divine set every time he fought a team battle. It was definitely a life-saving divine tool. Chapter 1585. Yi Tianyun was completely unscathed by the layers of protection around him. As for Heavenly God Torrent Cloud's rage, it couldn't even reach Yi Tianyun. If Heavenly God Torrent Cloud were to charge over, then the other patriarchs really wouldn't be able to survive. After all, they had a massive advantage over the patriarchs. They had 4 of them. As for the heavenly gods, they did indeed have fewer, but with Yi Tianyun's healing, they would be able to hold on. Now, it was time to see who could hold on longer. The first to collapse would be the first to lose. Judging from the current situation, it was clear that Heavenly God Torrent Cloud's side would collapse. After all, no matter how much they healed, they wouldn't be able to match up to Yi Tianyun's full support. Yi Tianyun was currently enjoying the experience points rolling in. He didn't even need to do anything to earn a large sum of experience points. At first, he had wanted to participate in the battles, but later on, he wasn't even allowed to participate. They were all protecting him, which made him feel quite exasperated. The main thing was that he was the main force of the main force. He could control all the risks and heal all the cultivators. As such, he was no longer allowed to fight. The others would fight, while Yi Tianyun would be responsible for healing. However, he was quite happy with this arrangement. After all, as a support healer, he would be able to earn everything from the cultivators the others killed, including those items. If he were to charge around recklessly, they would be terrified. They definitely didn't want him to do as he pleased. Unless he didn't use the voodoo wood divine set in the first place, no one would stop him. Right now, he could only stay here obediently and watch as they made their move. Even so, there were still a few heavenly gods charging over in a frenzy. The rest of the cultivators didn't pay any attention to them. Instead, they all charged over and sent the group of heavenly gods who were intercepting them flying. None of the injuries on their bodies remained. At most, they would take some pills and attack again. In contrast, Yi Tianyun's side didn't even need to take pills to heal their injuries. This was extremely easy. If they felt like they were too slow, they could take pills to heal themselves. How were they supposed to die? Unless he poked his head out and faced an existence with a cultivation several levels higher than him, he wouldn't die no matter what. It was precisely because they knew this that they rushed over in a frenzy. No matter what, they had to kill Yi Tianyun first. "Get out of my way!" The group of Empyrean gods roared angrily. Among them, the Sacred Peak Region Master was the vanguard. The power of a mid-level Empyrean god was naturally not to be underestimated. No matter what, it was the joint attack of 2 great forces. If they couldn't even unleash a little bit of power, it would really be terrible. However, the people of the Heaven Cultivation God Realm were also desperately trying to stop them. The 2 of them clashed back and forth, creating intense explosions that swept out in all directions. It had been a long time since such an intense battle had occurred. "Hold on. We must hold on." Area Lord Shotian's eyes were bloodshot. No matter what, they had to hold on to this place and prevent the enemy from killing their way in. Under their stubborn defense, they really managed to resist their attacks again and again. Vaguely, they even had a suppressive effect. Just when they thought they could hold on, suddenly, a figure appeared behind Yi Tianyun, holding a long sword and slashing at his waist. The sharp sword technique only took 1 stab, but it had the effect of waving 100 swords, instantly enveloping Yi Tianyun's body. A mole. The people who noticed this quickly felt their hearts sink. What they saw was actually Heavenly Venerate 100 Swords making a move. Heavenly Venerate 100 Swords had always been on their side, and he was a very good upper-level heavenly venerate. The explosive power he could unleash could exchange hundreds of blows with a lower-level Empyrean god without being defeated. They didn't expect that heavenly venerate 100 Swords, who had always been very upright, was actually a mole. He had quietly come over, seemingly to protect Yi Tianyun, but in reality, he was risking his life to kill Yi Tianyun. The heavenly venerates around him narrowed their eyes. They wanted to rush over to help, but it was already too late. The Sacred Peak Region Master and the others all revealed cruel smiles. Finally, the mole that they had planted here had worked. Even when the plan was launched, they did not expose all the mole, and they were still planted here. They did not expect to use it at this time, and everything was perfect. The attack had already locked onto Yi Tianyun, and there was basically no way for him to escape. In addition, his strength was not weak, and he could even exchange hundreds of blows with an Empyrean god without being defeated, which meant that his strength was enough to instantly kill Yi Tianyun. An upper-level heavenly venerate could not instantly kill a middle-level heavenly venerate. That was impossible. Die. The spirit sword in heavenly venerate 100 Swords hand turned into countless piercing rainbows, directly locking onto Yi Tianyun's head, making sure to kill him in one blow. Heavenly Venerate Swordmaster and the others on the side saw this situation and only glanced at it indifferently, too lazy to care. Only those cultivators who did not know about Yi Tianyun's situation felt that their hearts were about to fly out of their chests. If Yi Tianyun died, their long-term combat power would definitely drop a lot. Swoosh! A ray of light that was faster than this long sword directly penetrated Heavenly Venerate 100 Swords' head, directly blasting him into pieces. As for those attacks, they did not even touch his skin. Not to mention killing Yi Tianyun, they did not even have the chance to interrupt his healing. He was instantly killed. Sacred Peak Region Master and the others' crazy smiles froze just like that. None of them had seen Yi Tianyun's power, and they thought that Heavenly Venerate 100 Swords would definitely be able to kill him in one blow. Who would have thought that it would be Heavenly Venerate 100 Swords who would be killed in one blow? You want to kill me with just this guy? Yi Tianyun said indifferently. No matter what, you should at least send a few heavenly gods. How can these small fries be enough to fill my teeth? Heavenly Venerate Swordmaster and the others laughed. Thinking back to when Yi Tianyun was not a heavenly venerate, he could instantly kill a middle-level heavenly venerate and even fight against an upper-level heavenly venerate. Now that he had broken through to become a middle-level heavenly venerate, a mere upper-level heavenly venerate wanted to play with him? Without a heavenly god level, it was impossible to get close. Damn it! They roared. If this continued, they would definitely be in more and more danger. How were they supposed to play when that time came? Were they supposed to retreat now? If they retreated, they would not be willing to. Of course, Region Master Shoutian and the others also did not want to let them leave. They would do their best to keep them here and not let them escape. They also would not allow these guys to come and go as they pleased. No matter what, they had to give them an explanation. Give it your all. Sacrifice yourselves for me. At this moment, Heavenly God Torrential Cloud said indifferently, when my lord becomes a god emperor, you will all be revived. The Sacred Peak Region Master and the others were startled. Then, their eyes turned red, and they gritted their teeth. They had no choice. They had already sworn oaths and could not resist orders. Chapter 1586. The Sacred Peak Region Lord and the Myriad Heavens Region Lord were going to sacrifice themselves to unleash their greatest power. It wasn't just the Sacred Peak Region Lord and the Myriad Heavens Region Lord. All the other cultivators were going to unleash their greatest power. Or rather, they were going to burn all of their power. The effect of this was naturally extremely bad. They would either die or be heavily injured. There was no other choice. Especially in a situation where he had to defeat his opponent, if he couldn't win for a long time, he would definitely die first. Could they survive by burning their own life force? Empyrean God Torrential Cloud told them to burn their life force to release themselves. Given the current situation, if they didn't do this, it would be a waste of time. If they kept delaying, they would definitely die. Even though burning their life force might not be able to defeat their opponents, it was better than being stuck in a stalemate. His Excellency will revive us. The Sacred Peak Region Lord and the Myriad Heavens Region Lord's eyes turned bloodshot. They began to burn their life force like crazy believers. It wasn't just them. The other cultivators all began to burn their life force as well. Only the evil spirit race didn't do so. The others all began to burn their life force. They were going all out, and they were burning their life force to a great extent. They immediately detonated their life force, causing their combat power to skyrocket. Although the price was high, the effect was the most obvious, and it could be seen immediately. The expressions of Shotian Region Lord and the others changed. They didn't expect everyone to start burning their life force. This way, they, who were already at a slight disadvantage, would definitely suffer a heavy blow. Unless they also burned their life force, but burning their life force against them would be fatal. Neither pills nor Yi Qianyun's powerful healing abilities could easily replenish their life force. The two were not on the same level. If it was so easy to heal them, they would have gone crazy long ago. How crazy? All of them are burning their life force. All of them are madmen. No, they were forced to do so. Yi Qianyun glanced at them. In truth, none of them wanted to burn their life force, much less continue fighting. But they had no other choice. Empyrean god Torrential Cloud had them under his control. The Myriad Heavens Region Lord and the Sacred Peak Region Lord had to listen to him. As for the others, they had to listen to the Sacred Peak Region Lord and the others. Thus, as soon as they were given the order, they would all explode. Then, they would be entrusted to that illusory lord. Once they became god emperors, they would be revived. Who knew when they would become god emperors? In any case, they were going to burn themselves now. Empyrean god Tower Cloud was doing all of this for the sake of that treasure. As for what sort of treasure it was, Yi Qianyun wasn't sure. The reason why Empyrean god Surging Cloud was willing to risk his life to conquer the Heaven Cultivation God Realm was because of that treasure. The Cultivation Heaven Domain Lord was also willing to risk everything to protect this treasure. They're going all out, we're going all out too. Region Lord Xiao Tian roared and took the lead in burning his own life force. They also didn't want to burn their life force. Even if they survived, they would suffer severe injuries that would take a long time to recover. Some of them couldn't recover no matter what they did and had to be supplemented with precious elixirs in order to recover. But now that things had come to this, they could only choose to fight with their lives on the line. But overall, they definitely had an advantage over their opponents. Although Yi Qianyun's healing couldn't fill the gap left by life ignition, it could at least heal their injuries. They were both fighting with their lives on the line, but at least they could fight for a while longer. The two groups began to fight fiercely. The Holy Peak Region Lord and the Myriad Heavens Region Lord led the heavenly gods in a vicious charge. This time, their goal is still the same, that is to kill Yi Qianyun first. Everything else can be put aside. Only by killing Yi Qianyun, who could heal them, would they have a chance to kill Realm Lord Shotian and the others. Stop them. Realm Lord Shotian roared and unleashed all of his power to block the heavenly gods. They weren't the only ones. The patriarchs and the others also unleashed all of their power, all of them willing to sacrifice themselves. Empyrean god Tower Cloud's words were absolute orders. This was the tragedy of signing a contract. Everything was not up to them. It was up to others to decide. This was truly a tragedy. Piss off. The Holy Peak Region Lord and the others were responsible for paving the way. The two Peak Stage Region Lords were naturally powerful, and they charged forward, knocking aside a group of heavenly gods. The other heavenly gods behind them charged forward as well. They wanted to kill Yi Qianyun by force. They wouldn't stop until they killed Yi Qianyun. Hurry up and stop them. Realm Lord Xiao Tian and the others yelled, signaling the other elders to come and help. However, there was still a huge disparity in overall strength, so they couldn't help. In the end, two explosive heavenly gods charged toward Yi Qianyun. Oh no! Their hearts went cold. Forget about the other Empyreans, but an explosive heavenly deity, that was an existence on a whole different level. Even if they were lower heavenly gods, their power was still astonishing. They could definitely fight against ordinary lower heavenly venerables, or even late heavenly venerables. Yi Qianyun was only a middle heavenly venerable. How could they deal with him? Even Heavenly Venerable Jian Sai and the others were nervous. This was a heavenly god that was burning his life force. How could they deal with him easily? Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes. Indeed, explosive heavenly gods gave him great pressure, but that was all. Level up. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for successfully breaking through to middle heavenly venerable middle stage. Through continuous accumulation of experience, he had already reached the level of breaking through. Facing two heavenly gods, he naturally had to continue to level up. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to deal with them. 5 dragons roar. Yi Tianyun waved the 5 dragons' divine spear in his hand. 5 giant dragons whizzed forward. Combined with the effect of crazy damage mode, his combat power was greatly increased. The 5 giant dragons collided with them, and with a boom, the 2 explosive heavenly gods were blown away. His astonishing battle prowess stunned them all. A middle heavenly venerable could explode with the strength of a heavenly god. Wasn't this a joke? Reality wasn't joking with them. Yi Tianyun's attack caused them to quickly separate, and at the same time, they suffered some injuries. This was facing a pincer attack from 2 heavenly gods, and he was still able to repel them. This power was terrifying. This wasn't over yet. A figure suddenly appeared beside one of the heavenly gods. It was Yi Tianyun's body that wasn't considered burly. When he appeared beside the heavenly god, he fiercely swung his spear and directly pierced through the heavenly god's head. The attack was so fast that the heavenly god couldn't even react. After breaking through, he was even more heaven-defying. Chapter 1587. An explosive celestial was still killed by Yi Tianyun. This kind of strength was really amazing. Yi Tianyun was also surprised by his own strength. The increase in the basic foundation, coupled with the crazy damage mode, was really a perfect match. In addition, these celestial gods were not familiar with his fighting style, so they were naturally easily killed. Even if they exploded, they would still be killed by him. Bastard! After the other celestial god reacted, he roared and continued to attack. This time, he was prepared and was on full alert, worried that Yi Tianyun would choose to sneak attack again. But Yi Tianyun did not even think of continuing to sneak attack. Sneak attacks were fresh the first time, but a second time might not work. Especially against these celestial gods who used their full strength, the difficulty was undoubtedly a little higher. Open for me! The 5 dragon braces in Yi Tianyun's hands flashed, and light quickly rushed up from the braces and poured into the 5 dragon divine spear, directly increasing its power by a large margin. 5 dragon strengthening can greatly enhance the power of the 5 dragon divine spear, and at the same time increase the strength of the arm by 10 times. This was the skill effect of the braces. Not only could it enhance the power of the 5 dragon divine spear, but it could also increase the strength of one's arm by 10 times. This was the effect of a middle-level Empyrean spirit treasure, and it was quite amazing. Boom! The 5 dragons that shot out became several times larger, and their power greatly increased. This celestial god who rushed over stared with wide eyes. He did not expect that Yi Tianyun could still become stronger, and he thought that was the limit. With a crazy exchange of blows, Yi Tianyun actually exchanged several blows with this celestial god, and there was no sign of him being defeated. Not only that, but the healing effect of Yi Tianyun continued, and did not stop. Their original goal was to interrupt Yi Tianyun's healing, or kill him. Now let alone kill Yi Tianyun, they could not even interrupt his healing, as expected of a celestial god who burns his life. Even if he increased his cultivation and erupted with 2 Empyrean spirit treasures, it is still not easy to deal with him. Yi Tianyun brandished the 5 dragon divine spear in his hand in a frenzy. His opponent also continuously blocked or counterattacked. But in his heart, he was horrified. A mere mid-level Empyrean was normally just an ant. But now, not only was this ant not weak, he even had the power to counterattack. Forget about him, even the others were deeply shocked. The heavenly god on their side was almost beaten up. Haha, junior brother broke through again. This is truly inconceivable. Even if a heavenly deity went all out, they wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Little junior brother is indeed little junior brother. He doesn't need us to worry at all. He always makes us worry for nothing. That's right. We've been worrying for nothing. Every time, they turn their inferior quality into an advantage and crush them easily. Heavenly Venerable Sword sigh, and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. They originally thought that Yi Tianyun would be attacked fiercely, but who knew that it would be the other party who would be attacked fiercely? Even if they tied, Yi Tianyun would still be the winner. After all, Yi Tianyun didn't burn his life. If the other party burned his life, in terms of endurance, he would definitely be inferior to Yi Tianyun. If this continued, Yi Tianyun would definitely win. What's going on? Is he still a heavenly venerable Sacred Peak region master, and the rest didn't know where Yi Tianyun came from? How could he be so heaven-defying? Again, Yi Tianyun laughed loudly and fought to his heart's content. He crazily brandished the 5-dragon divine spear in his hand, and the 5-dragon gauntlet kept increasing his strength. Every time he smashed, his opponent would be knocked back a distance. It was a pity that he couldn't equip the evil Lord of Heaven set. Otherwise, his strength would definitely be even more heaven-defying. In order to be able to continue healing everyone, he could only do this, losing a portion of his combat power in exchange for the endurance of everyone, so it was still very worth it. Under Yi Tianyun's suppression, the other party kept retreating. If this continued, he would definitely lose. He didn't expect that even with his full strength, he could only fight to a draw. How could this heavenly god tolerate this? But he couldn't tolerate it. He couldn't kill Yi Tianyun. On the contrary, as time passed, Yi Tianyun gradually pressed down on him, making him unable to breathe. Finally, after a while, Yi Tianyun took advantage of the gap in the opponent's defense and killed him with one move. Just like that, the sharp 5-dragon divine spear opened a hole in his body. This wasn't the end. Yi Tianyun continued to sweep crazily and cut his opponent into 4 pieces. Ding! Successfully killed a heavenly god. Reward: 6 million compressed EXP, 50,000 compressed crazy point. A bunch of data flooded Yi Tianyun's mind again. Successfully killing a heavenly god made Yi Tianyun feel very comfortable. Before, he used a sneak attack and used all kinds of moves to kill a heavenly god. Now, he can suppress a heavenly god with a frontal attack. Of course, this heavenly god's level can only be regarded as ordinary, not the top level, let alone an ancient heavenly god. But this is already enough to deter a group of people. Yi Tianyun used his own strength to slap them in the face. So many people risked their lives to kill, and even 2 heavenly gods, the end result is death, no exception. These heavenly gods are not bad, but they are still a bit lacking. Can you send more? Yi Tianyun just stood in the same place and continued to heal the injuries of his companions. Except for a slightly lower aura, the rest of the injuries were not a problem. He just consumed a bit more energy. The other injuries are really not a big deal. With the super healing effect, naturally there will be no problem. The Saint Peak Domain Lord's face was pale. What can they do now? They had already gone all out in order for 2 heavenly deities to kill their way over. Now, they really didn't have any spare time. A bunch of trash. Heavenly god Torrential Cloud cursed, he went all out on his side, but he can't even kill a heavenly master. How can he survive? What are you still doing? Be fierce. Kill them all. Immediately after, heavenly god Torrential Cloud cursed again, telling them to go all out, don't delay anymore. Now that they are burning their life force, what is the concept of being fierce? Boom. Soon, a loud explosion sounded. The 2 heavenly gods in the process of fighting directly self-destructed. The power of a heavenly god's self-destruction is very terrifying. It directly blasted the surrounding cultivators. They were seriously injured, some even had their legs broken, some even lost half of their body. The effect of a heavenly god's self-destruction immediately manifested. It blasted a large number of people. The disadvantage is that even their own people were blown up, but the advantage is more obvious. It blew up a big hole. What is fierce? This is even more fierce. Chapter 1588. Boom. Another heavenly god exploded, sending Region Lord Xiu Tian and the others flying. All of them were slightly injured. Fortunately, with the help of medicinal pills and Yi Tianyun's super support, the injuries on their body quickly recovered. However, the gap had already been created, and 3 heavenly gods charged toward Yi Tianyun. There had been 2 before, but now there were 3 heavenly gods. Their cultivation bases were a level higher than before, and one of them was a late-stage lesser heavenly god, far more powerful than the heavenly god who had fought against Yi Tianyun. The heavenly god who had fought against Yi Tianyun was only an early-stage lesser heavenly god. Now, he had directly skipped 2 levels and reached the level of a late-stage lesser celestial god. Coupled with the fact that he had burned his life force, there was no need to even mention how powerful he was. They self-detonated several heavenly gods not only because they wanted to make Region Lord Xiu Tian and the others pay the price, but also because they wanted to force them back so they could rush over and kill Yi Tianyun. They had really gone all out this time. They had paid a hefty price to kill Yi Tianyun. However, this was the only price they could pay to break through the defense of Region Lord Xiu Tian and the others. Region Lord Xiu Tian and the others were not so aggressive. They had chosen to defend and slowly wear these guys down. However, these guys couldn't afford to wear them down, so they could only resort to cruel self-detonation. In the end, Heavenly God Torrential Cloud didn't want to take things slowly. He wanted to be quick and use the most violent method to suppress them. The effect was very obvious and very vicious. A large part of the sturdy defense was quickly disintegrated. This was the style of the evil spirit race. Even their own people were willing to pay any price to achieve their goals. Quick, go and save them. Region Lord Xiu Tian gritted his teeth. He hadn't even been happy before, but now he had let quite a few heavenly gods go. Even if they were prepared, it would not be easy to stop such a self-detonation. Okay. The other heavenly gods wanted to quickly go and help, but there were several heavenly venerables standing in their way. Boom. These heavenly venerables self-detonated without hesitation, sending the heavenly gods who wanted to go and help them flying. He didn't expect that after the first wave of self-destruction, another wave would come. Now, no one could come to help. It should be said that they couldn't help even if they wanted to. These fellows came one after another to self-destruct as if they didn't care about money. The many years of nurturing seemed to have been meaningless. With a single self-detonation, it was reduced to dust, leaving nothing behind. This was exactly what Empyrean God Torrential Cloud wanted. As long as he could win, everything else would be fine. Die. The eyes of the 3 heavenly gods that rushed over were red. If Yi Tianyun didn't die, then they would. Numerous Empyrean spirit treasures appeared in the surroundings. They were already prepared to deal a fatal blow. 3 heavenly gods. Yi Tianyun felt that things were getting tricky. These fellows were going all out, and they were even working together. It was possible to deal with them alone, but it would be quite difficult to deal with them together. However, he did not panic. Instead, he took a step forward and entered the void. The void bloodline wasn't just for show. As long as it was used well, it would have unexpected effects. He disappeared. He entered the void. He has the power of the void. The hearts of the 3 heavenly gods sank. Sure enough, they were not dealing with a small fry. Then, they waved the Empyrean spirit treasures in their hands and attacked the void beside them. The void here was not sturdy and could be destroyed. Following a loud explosion, a large area of the void collapsed. Immediately after, a figure appeared behind them, waving the 5-dragon divine spear and launching a sneak attack in their direction. However, they were already prepared. The 3 of them quickly joined forces, and the 9 Empyrean spirit treasures circled around and launched a vicious pincer attack on Yi Tianyun. They had already seen Yi Tianyun's sneak attack ability before. How could they fall for it again? Thus, in the instant that Yi Tianyun launched a sneak attack, they had already launched a pincer attack. Their coordination was seamless. Kuan Peng bloodline, fully open. Dragon Phoenix divine meridians, fully open. The 2 speed-enhancing bloodlines were fully activated here, and their speed instantly soared. They instantly escaped the pincer attack and attacked the heavenly god with the lowest cultivation. Their attacks were very good, but Yi Tianyun's speed was even more astonishing. After easily dodging the attack, he pierced through with his spear and stabbed one of the heavenly gods. At the same time, he sneered and said, "I don't just have the ability to sneak attack, idiot." He quickly flicked and cut another heavenly god in half at the waist, killing him instantly. If Yi Tianyun only had this bit of sneak attack ability, he would have died many times already. He had many abilities, and when he used them layer by layer, they knew what a nightmare was. The three of them launched a pincer attack, but one of them was still killed by Yi Tianyun. To them, it was really a great humiliation. However, they did not fly into a rage. Instead, they attacked again and directly surrounded him from all sides, sealing off all escape routes. Too naive. That was just bait. You can't escape this time. They used all their skills. If they still could not keep Yi Tianyun here, then they would really have to die. However, it was true that their companion was bait, but they absolutely did not expect that the bait would lead to their death. This was something they never expected. Now that things had come to this, they had no way out. They could only use their killer moves to directly suppress Yi Tianyun. In an instant, the heavenly venerate spiritual treasures that surrounded him, each one emitted a dazzling light. They were even completely overdrawing their heavenly venerate spiritual treasures. This time, they really went all out to kill this evil heavenly venerate to avoid future troubles. All the cultivators watching this side, whether they were on their side or the enemy's side, felt their hearts tighten. The Shoutian domain master and the others felt that they could not be killed, but the enemy felt that they must be killed. You are too naive. Level up. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for successfully breaking through to the late middle heavenly venerate cultivation base. Boom. After deducting a large amount of experience, Yi Tianyun successfully leveled up again. All this time, he had been constantly gaining experience. After all, as a support, he could gain experience when others killed the enemy. Therefore, from the beginning of the fight, he had been constantly earning experience, and now he could level up again. After leveling up, his aura was like a rainbow. He waved the 5-dragon divine spear in his hand and directly collided head-on with them. 5-dragon roar. 5 giant dragons whizzed forward and collided with their attacks. Boom. A shocking explosion spread in all directions. The group of people's hearts tightened, and they all paid attention to this side. Was Yi Tianyun dead or alive? Chapter 1589. After being attacked fiercely, Yi Tianyun actually withstood it. This performance shocked them greatly. He can be even stronger, how is that possible? They all used all their skills. According to Yi Tianyun's previous performance, he definitely couldn't have easily withstood it. Now, not only did he resist, he could even withstand most of the power, and the injuries he suffered were only light injuries. This shocked them. Did he feel stronger again? Or was it that Yi Tianyun's defensive power was so strong to begin with? Carefree, again, Yi Tianyun laughed loudly. It felt great to be able to face them head-on. This was the effect he wanted. Being able to crazily crush all the way, that was the right way. Although sneak attacks were also good, compared to facing them head-on, it was still lacking. He liked to use this kind of unparalleled strength to face the opponent head-on. That was manly. Yi Tianyun seemed to have become a warmonger now. He waved the 5-dragon divine spear and swept it down, stabbing down again and again, fighting to a draw with these Empyrean gods. Logically speaking, Yi Tianyun was still lacking, but he made full use of his advantage in speed, quickly dodging their attacks and then clashing head-on with them, achieving the effect of a draw. It seemed like a pity that it was a draw, but in everyone's eyes, this was the most terrifying thing. A Middle Empyrean fighting to a draw with an Empyrean god was simply inconceivable. If it were anyone else, who could do this? Even an ancient Empyrean couldn't play like this, right? It was already very good that an ancient Empyrean could exchange a few blows with an ordinary Empyrean god and not be defeated. Now that he was fighting with 2 explosive Empyrean gods for so long, he was a freak among freaks. If this continued, Yi Tianyun would definitely win. After all, he didn't burn his life, but the other party did. As time passed, he would gradually become weaker and weaker, and soon, he would be unable to do as he wished. Madman, he's definitely a madman. The 2 Empyrean gods had ugly expressions. Every attack was like hitting cotton, they couldn't exert any strength at all. No matter how fiercely they attacked, it was meaningless. If Yi Tianyun could dodge it, even if they fought him head-on, they would still fight to a draw. What was the point of playing? If this continued, they would be dead for sure. Not only were they doomed, but their companions were doomed as well. As long as Yi Tianyun remained, his healing effect would continue to envelop the entire area. His endurance far exceeded theirs, so naturally, they couldn't afford to play with him. Explode. The Saint Peak Domain Master's eyes were red. He could only sacrifice 2 of his subordinates. The 2 Empyrean gods were stunned at first, then they gritted their teeth, their eyes filled with unwillingness. However, they still pounced forward without hesitation. After all, they had no control over their own bodies. They had signed an absolute loyalty contract, so they naturally had to listen to the orders of their region master. These god realms were just that sick. When they joined, they had to sign an absolute loyalty contract. If he wanted them to self-detonate, they had to do it. There was no other choice, and they couldn't resist it. The 2 of them attacked Yi Tianyun from the front and back. Then, all the energy in their bodies burst out. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying power of the explosion swept over and completely enveloped Yi Tianyun. The crazy explosion made it impossible for Yi Tianyun to teleport. This kind of explosion also had the effect of sealing the space. In particular, the explosion of the 2 Empyrean gods was equivalent to a super strong attack from an intermediate Empyrean god. Yi Tianyun quickly tore the space apart and quickly hid in the void. Even if he couldn't block all the attacks, he could at least block some of the power. Let's see how you survive this time. The Saint Peak Domain Master's eyes were red. They had sacrificed so much this time, but they still couldn't kill Yi Tianyun. Soon, the explosion disappeared, and Yi Tianyun's figure appeared from the void. There was a thick layer of shield around his body. It was a super strong shield released from the wrist guard in his hand. Even so, he had still suffered serious injuries. His body was covered in blood, and he looked very miserable. However, with his super strong healing ability, his injuries recovered quickly. It wouldn't take long for him to completely recover. He's fine. The Saint Peak Domain Master and the others were furious. 2 Empyrean gods had attacked from the front and back, and under such circumstances, he was only injured. When the explosion happened before, even intermediate Empyrean gods would be injured, and some would even be on the verge of death. Under such circumstances, Yi Tianyun had only suffered relatively serious injuries, but they weren't fatal. He just needed a little more time to completely recover. There was no doubt that the explosion had failed, and it still didn't kill Yi Tianyun. Fortunately, I almost died. Yi Tianyun looked at the wrist guard in his hand. Fortunately, he had refined the 5-dragon wrist guard. Not only could it increase his strength, but it could also increase his defense to the maximum, forming a super strong shield that could withstand the attack of an Empyrean god. However, the attack was too strong. He hid in the void, and with the help of the 5-dragon wrist guard, he finally withstood it. This also had to do with his strong body. With a strong body and the power of 2 bloodlines, he wouldn't die so easily. Of course, he wasn't afraid of death at all. After all, he had been reborn from the ashes. However, the fact that he was able to withstand it also proved that he was not weak. It was even more shocking than being reborn from the ashes. This kind of explosion is like firecrackers. How disappointing. Can you come up with something stronger? Yi Tianyun laughed loudly. The injuries on his body were quickly recovering. Even though he couldn't move freely, he could still talk. All right. Everyone's morale soared when they saw that Yi Tianyun was fine. With Yi Tianyun's support, they would be able to continue fighting. At the same time, they were also very shocked by Yi Tianyun's strength. With this kind of strength, why would he need their protection? Trash. What a bunch of trash. You can't even kill him like this. What a bunch of trash. Empyrean god Skysurge was about to explode with rage. They had paid such a heavy price, but they couldn't even take down a heavenly venerate. To him, they really were a bunch of trash. Now that they had self-detonated, their drawbacks were immediately revealed. Their numbers were rapidly decreasing. Their advantage in numbers was slowly becoming a disadvantage. If things continued like this, forget about crushing them, they would even be able to wipe out all of them. Empyrean god Skysurge, you're going to lose for sure. Empyrean god Yudong continued to exchange blows with Empyrean god Skysurge, but they were still evenly matched. Even though Empyrean god Yudong was more powerful than Empyrean god Skysurge, he was still unable to take down Empyrean god Skysurge with ease. Empyrean god Skysurge was a member of the evil spirit tribe, and he had absorbed the bloodlines of countless powerful beings. In particular, he was an elder of the Heaven Cultivation God realm, which allowed him to easily devour those cultivators. "I'm going to lose." Empyrean god Skysurge chuckled coldly. "It's not certain who's going to lose yet." Chapter 1590. Boom. After clashing with Heavenly God Yudang, Heavenly God Towering Cloud hurriedly retreated. He looked at the cultivators before him with a displeased expression. "What a bunch of useless fools. What a waste of time and resources to nurture all of you. Even after joining forces, they still can't defeat a divine realm. What a bunch of trash. This is the only thing I can do now." Heavenly God Towering Cloud pulled out a black crystal before crushing it viciously. An inky black energy wafted out from the shattered crystal before being sucked into his nostrils. Moments later, Heavenly God Towering Cloud's body began to expand to an enormous size. The 4 wings on his back became 6, and 12 arms also sprouted from his back, all of which were wielding different Heavenly Venerate Spirit Treasures or Heavenly God Spirit Treasure. His aura surged explosively, and he actually forcibly raised it to the aura of an upper-level Heavenly God, crushing the group of people. Such an explosion of evolution caused many people to hold their breaths as they felt an incomparable pressure. This was especially so for his burly body, which was covered with black crystals. His perfect physique gave off an extremely valiant feeling. Yi Tianyun's expression instantly darkened as he looked over. Bloodline Awakening Eruption greatly enhances one's own power, granting one invincible power. Only beings with extremely dense bloodlines would be able to unleash this divine technique. Heavenly God Towering Cloud had used the Awakening Divine Stone to forcibly activate the awakening effect of his bloodline power, but he wouldn't be able to last very long, so this was a bloodline awakening eruption. No wonder it was so terrifying. The increase in power wasn't just a little bit. It was a jump of several levels in a row. How was this still the same level as before? Even though he wouldn't be able to last very long, he would still be able to last for a while. This pitilessly powerful aura was more than enough to crush all of them. This was an extremely powerful higher heavenly god, and Heavenly God Yudang was also a higher heavenly god. Who knew what would happen in a battle like this? Trash like you are all ants in the face of our perfect bloodlines. Heavenly God Towering Cloud roared with laughter as he swung the Heavenly Venerate Spirit Treasure in his hand, clashing with Heavenly God Yudang. Boom! Heavenly God Yudang was knocked flying. Even his frontal attack was no match for Heavenly God Towering Cloud. After sending Empyrean Lord Yudang flying, Empyrean God Tower Cloud immediately charged towards Yi Tianyun. He was going to attack Yi Tianyun no matter what. He had been suppressing his anger for a very long time. He had wanted to charge over and kill him, but Empyrean God Yudang had blocked his path. Originally, he didn't want to erupt, but now he was forced to. After erupting, he would suffer losses. If it wasn't harmful to his body, he would have exploded a long time ago and wouldn't have waited until now. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one wanted to overdraft their own life to attack. "Brat, hand over your life." Empyrean God Tower Cloud let out a thunderous roar as he charged forward in a frenzy. All of the cultivators in his path dodged and evaded him. Against an upper-level heavenly god, he really did not have the courage to resist. Even if he did, he would become cannon fodder. However, there were some who were unable to dodge quickly and immediately turned into a bloody mist. Regardless of whether they were allies or enemies, Empyrean God Tower Cloud completely ignored them as he swept his way forward. "Run!" The great Devas and the others immediately sent mental messages to Yi Tianyun, telling him to hurry up and flee. Without question, Empyrean God Tower Cloud was charging straight for Yi Tianyun. If he didn't flee in time, Yi Tianyun would definitely be blasted to smithereens. Yi Tianyun was capable of defeating lesser Empyrean gods, and he could even exchange a few blows with intermediate Empyrean gods. However, there was no way he would be able to withstand a monstrously powerful Empyrean god like Tower Cloud. Thus, they all urged Yi Tianyun to flee before it was too late. Even Yi Tianyun felt the pressure on him increase, to say nothing of them. In the face of Empyrean God Tower Cloud's ferocious attacks, He would definitely be unable to resist at all and would be insta-killed. Let's go. Yi Tianyun didn't hesitate at all. He immediately turned and fled. It wasn't that he was a coward, rather, it was that this was the wisest choice. In addition, this was a way to draw him away from the battlefield. If he was allowed to do as he pleased, he would make a huge mess of things. You want to run? Empyrean god Tower Cloud was naturally not going to let Yi Tianyun off the hook. His speed immediately increased by several dozen times as he charged toward Yi Tianyun. He caught up to Yi Tianyun in the blink of an eye. Even Yi Tianyun was unable to see his terrifying speed. Is this the power of a higher heavenly god? Or could it be that the evil spirit tribe possesses such terrifying power after awakening their bloodlines? Yi Tianyun's heart jolted. He felt like this power was on a whole new level compared to that of Empyrean god Yudang. They were both at the early heavenly god stage, so why was there such a massive disparity between them? In the next instant, Empyrean god Tower Cloud extended a hand toward him. His massive hand was like the inky black sky as it came crashing down, cutting off all avenues of escape. Get in here. Empyrean god Tower Cloud's hand was extremely powerful, making it impossible for Yi Tianyun to teleport away. It was as if he were surrounded by a series of thick walls that he was unable to pass through. All of a sudden, all of his abilities had been rendered useless. In the face of this pitilessly powerful attack, he was completely powerless. Looks like I'm dead for sure. Yi Tianyun really felt like there was no way he could resist this attack unless his cultivation base improved to a higher level. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to defend himself. He wanted to level up now, but he couldn't even do that. He was still a long way off in terms of experience. In particular, the amount of experience required to break through to the upper heavenly venerate was astronomical. Even if he killed heavenly gods, he would have to kill several dozen of them before he could progress to the upper heavenly venerate. In this dire situation, a massive hand suddenly reached out from within the cultivation god realm before grabbing onto Empyrean god Tower Cloud's hand and crushing it. Bam! Empyrean god Tower Cloud's massive black hand was crushed, just like that. Me. Empyrean god Tower Cloud let loose a muffled groan as he flew through the air. Black blood gushed from his mouth, indicating that he had sustained severe injuries. How dare a mere insect like you run amok in my territory? A projection appeared from within the cultivation god realm. This massive projection was like a god emperor that had descended upon this entire area. The cultivation heaven realm lord and the others all looked on with reverence in their eyes. We pay our respects, Patriarch. This projection was none other than the Patriarch of the cultivation god realm. He possessed peerless power and had awakened from his slumber. Upper heavenly god final stage. Yi Tianyun drew a sharp intake of breath. He didn't think that there would be such a powerful being within the cultivation god realm. Why had he only appeared now? In his eyes, there was only one possibility, and that was that he didn't have long to live, or that he was just a projection. Chapter 1591. After the ancestor appeared, he severely wounded Empyrean god Torrential Cloud in just a few blows. The seemingly invincible Empyrean god Torrential Cloud was sent flying, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The wings on his back quickly retracted. At the same time, the 12 arms quickly returned to their original state. His powerful physique had become shriveled up, his blood energy depleted, scattering extremely badly. This was the consequence of forcibly awakening a bloodline. Once interrupted, one's blood energy would be depleted, and one's body would become shriveled up like an old man. This power. Empyrean god Torrential Cloud's eyes were filled with terror. The Empyrean god realm has a patriarch like this. It was clear that Empyrean god Torrential Cloud didn't know about such a powerful being. He had been in the Empyrean god realm for so long, but he didn't even know about this patriarch. He had lived like a dog. Die. The patriarch reached out toward Empyrean god Torrential Cloud again, scaring him out of his wits. He took out a special black crystal, similar to the one he had taken before, but different. After crushing it, the void suddenly shattered, and a giant hand reached out and pulled him into the void. The void quickly filled back up, and everything was the same as before. The patriarch's attack naturally missed. It struck the void, and layers of terrifying energy spread out, giving the Holy Peak Region Lord and the others a fright. Run! Run! The Holy Peak Region Lord and the others immediately turned tail and ran. Even Empyrean god Torrential Cloud, who was controlling them, had fled. A bunch of disrespectful fools. Stay where you are. The Patriarch waved his hand and continued to strike down, killing an Empyrean god with extreme ease. Lesser Empyrean gods and intermediate Empyrean gods were all killed with ease. When they saw the scene before them, all of them were extremely excited. Things were different with the help of a Patriarch. He killed the invaders and even saved them. Otherwise, they would have been crushed by Empyrean god Torrential Cloud. Even if they survived, they probably wouldn't have much left. Yi Tianyun's heart was dripping blood when he saw this. His voodoo with divine set couldn't support Patriarch Heaven cultivation, so he wouldn't gain any experience points when Patriarch Heaven cultivation killed these heavenly gods. Damn it! That Patriarch Heaven cultivator is just an illusion. I can't heal him at all. Yi Tianyun couldn't even help Patriarch Heaven cultivator if he wanted to. How was he supposed to help without a physical body? However, he didn't just stand there and watch. With a loud roar, he charged towards the other heavenly deities. If he could kill one, it would be one. He really wanted to break through to the upper sky sovereign realm. Every time he fought against those high-level heavenly gods, he felt a sense of helplessness. Therefore, breaking through his cultivation was imperative. Little junior brother seems to be angered. Just now, little junior brother was almost killed, that's right. He's probably very angry now and wants revenge. Poor little junior brother. Look at his expression, it's like he's missing some treasure. I can understand his feelings. He was forced into a dead end, yet he still kept chasing after him. What a tragedy. They shook their heads and felt sorry for Yi Tianyun. However, they were glad that he was fine. Otherwise, they would have lost such a powerful little junior brother. The surrounding cultivators all felt the same way. Patriarch Heaven cultivation could have easily taken care of them, but he had to do it himself. It seemed that he hated these invaders very much. Little did they know that Yi Tianyun was distressed by the experience points he had lost. How could he be happy about losing so much experience points? That kind of feeling was absolutely incomparable grief. Ah! It's all mine, it's all mine. Yi Tianyun brandished the 5-dragon divine spear and killed heavenly venerables and heavenly gods one after another. However, he was still a far cry from Patriarch Heaven cultivation. Patriarch Heaven cultivation controlled the entire area with each palm strike. No one could escape. In just a short while, all the invaders were dead. Not a single one was left. This kind of power was really too powerful. However, they were puzzled. Why didn't they appear when they first invaded? If they had appeared, their losses wouldn't have been so great. Although they had Yi Tianyun's support and healing, they had still suffered heavy losses. Many heavenly venerables and heavenly gods had died. If Patriarch Heaven cultivation had appeared at the beginning, none of the invaders would have been able to return. However, they didn't ask. Who knew what Patriarch Heaven cultivation was thinking? Perhaps he wouldn't come out until the most critical moment. Sigh, you're on your own. Patriarch Heaven cultivation sighed deeply and disappeared. He didn't show up in person, nor did he stay any longer. Heavenly God Yudong flew over and knelt deeply. Farewell, Patriarch Heaven cultivation. Farewell, Patriarch Heaven cultivation. The other disciples also knelt down to express their highest respect. However, many of them had never seen Patriarch Heaven cultivation before and didn't know of his existence. Even Heavenly God Torrent Cloud didn't know, let alone the other heavenly venerables and elders. Heavenly God Torrent Cloud had been here for who knew how many years. He was at least at the 1,000-year level, and some were even at the 10,000-year level. After sending off Patriarch Heaven cultivation, Heavenly God Yudong didn't say much. He just told them to pack up and return to the Heaven cultivation God realm to heal their injuries. When they all returned to the Great Hall, only the elders were left. One of them couldn't help but ask, Patriarch Yudong, why didn't Patriarch Heaven cultivation appear at the beginning? Heavenly God Yudong shook his head and sighed deeply. Actually, I was the one who summoned Patriarch Heaven Cultivation. Patriarch Heaven Cultivation has fused with the Heaven Cultivation God realm. Every time he appears, he will fall into a deep slumber for 10,000 years. If it weren't for the fact that I had no other choice, I wouldn't have wasted this opportunity. It will definitely save my life at the most critical moment. It was a little dangerous this time, but it's not the most critical moment yet. After all, with little friend Heavenly Cloud's help, even if there are some sacrifices, it's still possible to stabilize the situation. Heavenly God Yudong explained a little, and they immediately understood what he meant. So there was such a thing. Once he appeared, he would sleep for 10,000 years. Everyone had seen Patriarch Heaven Cultivation's power just now. He was so powerful that he wouldn't even be afraid of several upper heavenly gods. But now, he had wasted it on a upper heavenly god and some mid-level heavenly gods. How could they not feel pity? It was an absolutely life-saving trump card at the most critical moment, but now that he had used it, it was a mixed blessing. Chapter 1592. After everyone heard the news, they looked at each other and saw the worry in each other's eyes. Even Heavenly God Torrential Cloud had been rescued just then, so there was undoubtedly an even more powerful force behind the scenes. If they were to make a comeback, they would most likely be unable to stop them. When Zhongxian first saw the Heaven Ascension sect's old ancestor, he had thought that he was an existence hidden in the depths of the world. Now that he had woken up from his seclusion, he decided to save the Heaven Ascension sect's god realm. However, the truth was that the Heaven Cultivator Patriarch was already dead. It was just that his body and soul had merged with the Heaven Cultivator God domain, so that he could come out at the critical moment to save them. Now that the opportunity was gone, he wouldn't be able to save the situation next time. No wonder Empyrean God Yulang didn't summon it immediately. He didn't want to use it unless he had to. He had no choice but to use it at this critical moment. If they didn't use it now, they would be annihilated. At that time, it would be useless to keep them alive. However, a single Empyrean God Heaven Surge had forced them to summon Patriarch Heaven Repairman. What would happen next? As a result, their hearts grew heavy. First, they had betrayed a large group of people, and now they had to use Ancestor Heaven Cultivation. It could be said that every step from now on would be difficult. Thinking back to what Patriarch Heaven Cultivation had said before, he had told them to take care of themselves. He really did take care of themselves. Is there no way to help Patriarch Sky Cultivator recover quickly, Patriarch Yudong? Even if I don't recover immediately, I can at least recover some of my strength. Realm Lord Heaven Cultivation had no choice but to take a step back and see if there was a way to help Patriarch Heaven Cultivation recover. It would be good if he could shorten it a little. Otherwise, if he waited for it to recover bit by bit, it would be too slow. What do you think of that surge of power just now? Empyrean God Yudong asked. Very powerful, almost an invincible existence. He has probably reached the late upper heavenly god level, right? Region Lord Shoutian said. Yes, it's indeed very powerful. It's precisely because it's very powerful that you think there's anything that can easily recover from it. Or should I say, someone who can recover substantially? Empyrean God Yudong asked. This, Area Lord Shoutian and the others looked at each other in dismay. After thinking about it carefully, they realized that this was indeed the case. The items needed to recover such great power were extremely complicated and of a very high level. Even if they threw everything they had into the heaven cultivating god realm, they wouldn't be able to recover much. The stronger one's cultivation was, the slower the rate of recovery would be. The main thing was that the item's grade was too low, so the effects wouldn't be too great. They all had a deep understanding of this point. Pills that were effective for those with low cultivation bases would only have the same effect as an itch to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been stuck at this level and couldn't even take a single step forward. We can only rely on ourselves now. Patriarch Heaven Cultivation is about to enter a deep slumber, but it seems that they won't be able to attack us anytime soon. Heavenly Deity Yudong said solemnly, but we can't let our guard down. We must remain vigilant. If a fight breaks out, we can only defend until the end. Everyone nodded. They already had this thought, and it was impossible for them to retreat. Moreover, It was useless to retreat. With the evil spirit race's personality, they would definitely kill them all and not let a single one of them go. Senior, thank you for summoning Patriarch Heaven Cultivation to save this junior. If it weren't for Senior, this junior would have lost his head long ago, said Yi Tianyun gratefully. If he didn't summon it immediately, he would have been killed. Of course, he wouldn't die. He was afraid of being trapped. That was the most difficult part. After being killed, he could revive very quickly. If he was trapped, he wouldn't be able to escape. After all, if he was trapped, he wouldn't be able to earn experience. He wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Although he was constantly gaining experience, it was still too little. It was like trying to put out a cart of firewood with a cup of water. Right now, he was indeed constantly gaining experience. It was from the divine realm of the three realms. Whenever they made a breakthrough or killed demonic beasts, he would be able to gain experience. But these experience points were too low. The amount of experience he needed now was too high. But if he was really trapped, he could only endure it slowly. When he reached a certain point, he would be able to break through and rush out. No matter what, he had to thank Patriarch Heaven Cultivation for saving his life. Otherwise, Patriarch Daoyun would have devoured him. At that time, it would not be an easy thing to resurrect. Don't worry about that. You've helped us more. Heavenly Deity Yudong sighed. It's a pity. If I could stop him, it wouldn't be so urgent. Unfortunately, I'm seriously injured and can't recover. Patriarch Yudong, you're injured? They looked at Heavenly Deity Yudong in shock. Heavenly Deity Yudong hadn't been attacked before. How could he be injured? Heavenly Deity Yudong gently pulled open his clothes. There were dense black patterns on them. They looked quite terrifying. It was as if something had implanted them on the surface of his body. Evil energy rushed toward him. Their eyes widened. Heavenly Deity Yudong had this kind of situation? Yi Tianyun focused his eyes. He looked at Heavenly Deity Yudong's body and immediately saw some clues. Wretch God's Pearl, Ultra Heavenly God Spirit Treasure. Seals a portion of the Wretch God's power. The wielder will be slowly devoured. When used, it can summon a powerful Wretch God to resist everything. What's going on? When they saw this scene, they were completely stunned. They didn't expect Heavenly Deity Yudong's body to look like this. This is the treasure they want. It has been passed down from generation to generation. They used their bodies to seal this evil spirit's pearl. Heavenly Deity Yudong said in a low voice, "This has always been a secret. It can only be passed down to the next generation. So it's normal that you don't know. Now that it's exposed, you might as well say it. Otherwise, you won't know what you're guarding." A long time ago, our heavenly deity realm was one of the main forces resisting the main culprits of the Battle of God Emperors. After the strongest evil spirits were sealed, we were divided into several regions. Among them, the evil spirit's pearl in my body is sealing the limbs of the evil spirits. Heavenly Deity Yudong explained, I can use the power inside, but my body can't. If I continue to use it, it will continue to corrode. In the end, I could only use the power of Heavenly Deity Realm Patriarch. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to deal with them. The simple explanation stunned them all. They didn't expect such a thing to happen. Although Yi Tianyun already knew a little, he couldn't help but be shocked when he heard it. Evil spirits? Heavenly Deity Realm Lord was confused. Yes, there are no records of it now. In fact, the real culprit is the evil spirits, the guy who calls himself evil spirits. But I have to say, he is the expert closest to the God Emperor realm. He plundered a lot of people's bloodlines to break through to the God Emperor realm.